Yo Potterheads, what if Harry wasn't just the boy who lived, but the prophesied wizard destined to unite 3 ancient witch bloodlines? When a forgotten prophecy awakens after the war, powerful heiresses from the Moon, Flame, and Star clans are magically bound to him. Now Harry isn't just powerful, he's the living balance of the wizarding world. And everyone wants control. Chapter 1. The heat in Little Whinging wasn't just hot, it was disrespectful. It was the kind of oppressive, sticky humidity that clung to your skin like a bad reputation, making the air feel heavy enough to choke on. July had rolled in with a vengeance, turning the pristine, cookie-cutter lawns of Privet Drive into scorched squares of yellow straw. The asphalt shimmered in the distance, distorting the world like a funhouse mirror, but there was nothing fun about being Harry Potter right now. He lay sprawled on his narrow bed, staring up at the ceiling where a spider was busy spinning a web in the corner. He felt a weird kinship with the little guy, trapped in a box, waiting for something to happen, spinning wheels but going nowhere. His body ached, a deep, thrumming soreness that had settled into his marrow a week ago and refused to leave. It felt like growing pains on steroids, like his bones were trying to reshape themselves under his skin. Downstairs, the television was blaring some mindless game show, the canned laughter drifting up through the floorboards. Vernon Dursley was home, which meant the atmosphere in number 4 was toxic. The man had been on a tear lately, his temper shorter than a fuse on a cheap firecracker. Harry had learned to make himself invisible, a ghost in his own life, dodging heavy footsteps and heavier glares. But today felt different. The air in his small room felt charged, static electricity prickling along his arms. It smelled like ozone and old blood, a metallic tang that coated the back of his throat. Harry sat up, wiping wheat from his forehead with the back of his hand. He caught his reflection in the cracked wardrobe mirror. He looked like hell warmed over. Dark circles bruised the skin under his eyes, and his scar, had lightning bolt curse mark, was inflamed, a raw, angry red against his pale skin. But it wasn't hurting, not like when Voldemort was nearby. This was different. It was a pulse, a heartbeat that wasn't his own, thumping against his skull. Boy, Vernon's voice bellowed from the bottom of the stairs, shaking the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams. Harry winced, the sound driving a spike of pain through his temples. Get down here, now. Harry swung his legs off the bed, his feet hitting the floor with a heavy thud. He grabbed an oversized t-shirt, pulling it over his head as he moved to the door. Every step felt heavy, like he was walking through molasses. He gripped the doorframe for a second, steadying himself as a wave of dizziness washed over him. The world tilted, colors bleeding together, before snapping back into sharp, painful focus. Keep it together, Potter, he told himself. Just get through the day. He descended the stairs, the wood creaking under his weight. In the living room, Vernon was purple-faced, pointing a sausage-like finger at the window. Petunia was wringing her hands by the kitchen door, looking like she'd just swallowed a lemon whole, and Dudley was nowhere to be seen, probably out terrorizing the neighborhood kids or smoking behind the garage. What is the meaning of this? Vernon spat, spittle flying. Harry followed the finger. Outside, on the perfectly manicured lawn, a murder of crows had gathered. Hundreds of them. They weren't moving, weren't making a sound. They were just standing there, facing the house, black eyes fixed on the front window. It looked like a scene out of a horror movie. I don't control birds, Uncle Vernon, Harry said, his voice raspy. He felt a weird pull in his gut, a tug toward the lawn. The birds, they were waiting. Don't give me that freak nonsense. Vernon roared, stepping closer. You're doing this, bringing your abnormality to my doorstep, scaring the neighbors. I'm not doing anything, Harry shot back, his temper flaring. Usually, he'd just take it, keep his head down. But the heat, the pain in his bones, the weird static in the air, it was stripping his patience raw. Maybe they just like your gardening. Vernon's face went from purple to a dangerous shade of mottled crimson. He lunged, grabbing Harry by the front of his shirt. I have had enough of you, boy. I've half a mind to throw you out on the street and let your lot deal with you. Harry didn't flinch. In fact, he felt a cold, detached calm settle over him. It was terrifying. He should be scared. Vernon was a big man, and he was angry. But Harry just looked at him, and for a split second, Vernon's eyes widened. He let go of Harry as if he'd been burned, stumbling back. Your eyes, Vernon whispered, his voice trembling. What the hell is wrong with your eyes? Harry frowned, touching his face. What? There, glowing, Petunia squeaked, pressing herself against the doorframe. Vernon, look at him. It's happening again. Harry spun around to the mirror over the fireplace. The reflection that stared back wasn't entirely his. His eyes, usually a bright emerald green, were swimming. The pupils had elongated, turning into vertical slits, and the green was swirling with flecks of gold and a deep, void-like purple. And then the pain hit. It wasn't a headache, it was a sledgehammer to the soul. Harry screamed, clutching his head, dropping to his knees. It felt like his skull was being pried open with a crowbar. Images flashed through his mind, not memories, but ancient, jagged shards of history. A woman in a tower. Storms raging around her, chanting in a language that tasted like ash. 3 figures standing around a cauldron that contained the cosmos. A battlefield soaked in blood, a sword glowing with moonlight, and a shadow that swallowed the sun. Make it stop, Harry yelled, curling into a ball on the rug. The static in the room exploded. The television screen shattered, imploding inward. The vases on the mantel disintegrated into fine dust. The windows blew out, glass showering the lawn, and the crows outside took flight all at once, a swirling vortex of black wings blotting out the sun. Vernon and Petunia were screaming, huddling under the coffee table, but Harry couldn't hear them. The roaring in his ears was deafening. It sounded like a choir of the dead, thousands of voices whispering, screaming, chanting. The blood returns. The pact is sealed. The triad wakes. Harry felt a tearing sensation in his chest, right where his heart was. It was as if 3 separate hooks had snagged his soul and were pulling in different directions. Then, the front door was blasted off its hinges. It didn't just open, it disintegrated, wood chips flying like shrapnel. A figure stepped through the ruin. It wasn't Dumbledore. It wasn't Voldemort. It was a woman, tall and imposing, dressed not in robes, but in a sharp, modern business suit that looked like it cost more than the entire house. She had stark white hair cut in a severe bob and eyes that looked like shattered glass. She stepped over the debris, ignoring the cowering Dursleys, and walked straight to Harry. The pressure in the room intensified, gravity seeming to double. Finally, she said, her voice sounding like grinding stones. We thought the line had ended. Harry tried to look up, tried to reach for his wand, but his limbs wouldn't obey. Who are you? The woman knelt beside him, unbothered by the chaos. She placed a hand on his forehead, right over the scar. Her touch was ice cold. I am the keeper of the vows, she said. And you, Harry Potter, are about to have a very bad day. She didn't use a wand. She simply tapped his forehead, and the world went black. When Harry woke up, he wasn't in Kansas anymore. Or Surrey. He was lying on a cold stone slab in a cavernous room lit by floating blue flames. The air was frigid, smelling of damp earth and ancient incense. He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy, sluggish. Easy, kid, you're still cooking. The voice came from the shadows. Harry squinted. A man stepped into the light. He looked rough. Leather jacket, combat boots, a face that had seen one too many bar fights. He was smoking a cigarette, the smoke curling up in lazy gray spirals. Where am I? Harry croaked. His throat felt like he'd swallowed sandpaper. Deep underground, the man said, flicking ash onto the stone floor. Somewhere the ministry can't track, and your little dark lord can't find. Call it a safe house, if safe houses were creepy crypts. Why forced himself into a sitting position, his head swimming. Who was that woman? The one at the house. That was Morgan, the man said casually. Well, an echo of her, anyway. She handles the intake. I handle the babysitting. Morgan. Harry blinked. Like, LaFay. The man chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Bingo. And you, lucky bastard, just won the genetic lottery. Or the curse lottery, depending on how you look at it. Harry swung his legs off the slab. He looked down at his hands. They looked different. Paler, maybe. The veins seemed darker, more prominent. I don't understand, Harry said. What happened back there? My eyes, the power. The man took a long drag of his cigarette, exhaling slowly. You know the history books. The ones that say magical lines die out. They're full of crap. Magic doesn't die, kid. It sleeps. It hides. And sometimes, it piles up in one poor sucker until the dam breaks. He walked over to Harry, invading his personal space. He smelled like tobacco and ozone. You're a convergence, Harry. 3 lines. 3 very old, very nasty, very powerful witch bloodlines. They've been dormant in your family tree for centuries, diluted, hidden. But you're the spark that lit the fuse. Which lines? Harry asked, a cold dread pooling in his stomach. He knew enough about ancient lines, from Sirius to know it usually meant trouble. First one you guessed. The man counted on his fingers. Morgana Le Fay, the chaos line, elemental, raw, unpredictable. That's the one that blew up your uncle's living room. Harry swallowed hard. Morgana Le Fay was a myth. A monster in the stories. Second, the man continued. The Peverell line. Yeah, I know, everyone thinks that's just the Deathly Hallows fairy tale. But the blood is real. The necromancy line. Death, spirits, the veil. That's the cold you're feeling. Harry rubbed his arms. He was freezing, despite the lack of a breeze. And the third? Harry asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. The man grinned, showing teeth that looked slightly too sharp. The Black family likes to think they're ancient. Malfoys think they're royalty. But the third line, that's the big one. The Thessalian line, descended from Erichtho. The Blood Witches. Harry stared at him. Blood magic. That's dark magic. Illegal magic. Kid, where we're going, illegal, is just a suggestion, the man laughed. You have the potential for all three. But right now, they're fighting for dominance inside you. If we don't stabilize you, you're going to explode. And not just blow up a house, explode. I mean, crater the size of London, explode. Quote. Harry stood up, his legs shaking. So what do I do? You endure, the man said, his expression hardening. We're going to put you through the rite of acceptance. It's going to hurt. A lot. Most people die. Some go insane. But if you survive, you won't just be a wizard anymore. You'll be a force of nature. He gestured to a massive stone door at the end of the hall. Behind that door is the Well of Echoes. You go in, you face the bloodlines, you force them to submit. You show them who's boss. And if I can't, then I sweep up your ashes and we try again in another 1,000 years. The man said, stubbing out his cigarette on the wall. No pressure. Harry looked at the door. He thought of Dumbledore, who always told him love was the answer. He thought of Voldemort, who wanted power above all else. He thought of his friends, probably worried sick. He realized, with a jolt, that he didn't care about the rules anymore. He was tired of being the victim. Tired of being hunted. Tired of surviving on luck and scraps of information. If he had power, real, ancient power, maybe he could finally stop running. Let's do it, Harry said, his voice steady. The man nodded, looking impressed. Attaboy. Name's Dante, by the way. Try not to die. I hate paperwork. Harry walked toward the door. The stone groaned as it began to open, revealing a swirling vortex of shadow and light. It looked like the entrance to hell, or heaven, or something in between. He stepped through. The sensation was immediate and violent. It felt like being flayed alive. Harry fell to his knees in a void of nothingness. There was no floor, no ceiling, just endless, swirling gray mist. Who dares? The voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere. It was female, ancient, dripping with power. Harry Potter, he gritted out, forcing himself to stand. Potter, a second voice sneered. This one sounded like rust and dried blood. A mortal name, a weak name, he carries the mark, a third voice whispered. Soft, silky, dangerous. The touch of death. 3 figures coalesced from the mist. To his left, a woman made of storms and lightning. Her hair was a thunderhead, her eyes flashing white. Morgana. To his right, a skeletal figure draped in shadows that seemed to eat the light. It wore a crown of bone. The Peverell aspect. In the center, a woman of terrifying beauty, her skin pale as marble. Her lips blood red, she held a dagger that dripped crimson liquid that never hit the ground. Erichtho, you seek to bind us. Morgana laughed, the sound like cracking thunder. You are a child, a vessel of straw, you reek of fear, the Peverell shade hissed. And hesitation. Give up, Erichtho purred. Let us consume you. It will be quick, painless. Harry looked at them. He felt small, insignificant. But beneath the fear, there was anger. A hot, burning coal of rage that had been stoking in his gut for 15 years. I'm not here to ask, Harry said, his voice echoing in the void. He didn't pull his wand. He didn't know how to use these powers yet. But he knew one thing, intent. Magic was about will. He focused on the core of his being, the place where that weird, thrumming pain lived. He grabbed hold of it mentally and pulled. I'm here to take what's mine. The 3 figures screeched as a shockwave of raw magic blasted from Harry. It was golden, wild, untamed. Morgana raised a hand, sending a bolt of lightning at him. Harry didn't dodge, he caught it, he didn't know how, but his hand snapped up, and the lightning coiled around his arm, burning his skin, searing the flesh. But he held it, he absorbed it. Impossible, Morgana gasped. My turn, Harry snarled. He unleashed the energy back at her, not as lightning, but as a wave of pure force. It slammed into her, shattering her form into mist before she reformed, looking wary. He has the will, the Peverell shadow observed. But does he have the stomach? The shadow lunged, turning into a swarm of skeletal hands grasping for Harry's throat. Harry felt the cold of the grave wash over him. He thought of his parents. Of Sirius. Of every death he had witnessed. Instead of fighting the cold, he embraced it. He let the chill into his heart. He understood death. He had walked beside it his whole life. I am not afraid of the dark, Harry whispered. The skeletal hands stopped inches from his face. They trembled, then bowed. The Peverell shadow lowered its head. Accepted. 2 down, 1 to go. Erictho smiled. A cruel, predatory thing. Impressive. But I am not swayed by parlor tricks. Blood demands blood, little wizard. What are you willing to sacrifice? She stepped forward, the dagger raised. To wield the blood, you must spill it. You must understand that power is pain. She slashed the air, and a cut appeared on Harry's cheek, deep and stinging. Then another on his arm. Another on his chest. Harry fell to one knee, gasping. He was bleeding from a dozen invisible wounds. Give in, she cooed. Die. Harry looked at his own blood dripping onto the non-existent floor. It was bright red. Life. He realized she wasn't asking for his death. She was asking for his conviction. He stood up, shaking. He looked Erictho in the eye. He reached out and grabbed the blade of her dagger. His hand sliced open, blood pouring down his wrist. He didn't let go. He squeezed. I have bled enough for one lifetime, Harry said, his voice low, vibrating with power. Now, I make others bleed. He yanked the dagger from her grasp. Erictho's eyes widened. She threw her head back and laughed, a sound of pure delight. Ruthless. Good. She dissolved into red mist that rushed into Harry's chest. Morgana turned into white light and slammed into his left side. The Peverell shadow became darkness and entered his right. Harry screamed as his body was rewritten. His magical core, once a lake, was now an ocean. A storm. A graveyard. He felt knowledge flooding his brain, spells he'd never heard of. Rituals that could level cities, languages dead for millennia. He saw the ley lines of the earth. He felt the heartbeats of the people miles away. And then, silence. Harry opened his eyes. He was back in the stone room. Dante was leaning against the wall, checking his watch. 20 minutes, Dante whistled. Not a record, but not bad. You alive? Harry stood up. He felt different, taller. The pain was gone, replaced by a hum of limitless potential. He looked at his hands. The scars from the dagger were gone, leaving faint silver lines. He looked at Dante. I'm alive, Harry said. His voice had changed. It was deeper, carrying a resonance that made the air vibrate slightly. Dante pushed off the wall, looking Harry up and down. He stopped at Harry's eyes. Damn, kid, you got the look. Harry walked over to a polished shield hanging on the wall to see his reflection. His hair was still messy, but it seemed darker, like ink. His features were sharper, more aristocratic. But his eyes, the green was still there, but it was rimmed with electric blue Morgana, and the pupil was a vertical slit of darkness Peverell. And deep in the iris, there were flecks of crimson Erictho. So, Dante said, lighting another cigarette, you're the master of the triad. What's the first order of business? World domination, revenge, a really big cheeseburger. Harry turned away from the reflection. He felt the 3 bloodlines settling inside him, like 3 tigers pacing in a cage. They were waiting for a command. He thought of the prophecy. Neither can live while the other survives. He thought of Dumbledore keeping secrets. The ministry's incompetence. First, Harry said, walking toward the exit. I need a new wand. This one. He pulled out his holly wand. It felt fragile, like a twig. It was vibrating, unable to channel the torrent of magic he now held. This one isn't going to cut it. Fair enough, Dante said. I know a guy. But after that, Harry paused at the archway. The air outside was fresh, but he could smell the rot of the world. The war was coming, and for the first time, Harry wasn't dreading it. He smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf that just realized the sheep have nowhere to run. After that, Harry said, we go hunting. The location Dante took him to wasn't Diagon Alley. It wasn't even in London. Dante grabbed Harry's arm and side-along apparated them with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. They landed in a narrow, cobblestone alleyway that smelled of saltwater and old spices. It was night here, New Orleans, Harry guessed, looking at the wrought iron balconies and hearing the distant wail of a saxophone. New Orleans, Dante confirmed. The French Quarter. Best place in the world for dark magic and strong drinks. Keep your head down. The locals don't take kindly to tourists, especially ones glowing with ancient mojo. Harry pulled his hood up. He could feel the magic of the city. It was thick, humid, and wild. Unlike the structured, polite magic of Britain, this felt primal. They walked down the street, passing shops selling voodoo dolls, dried alligator heads, and jars of things Harry didn't want to identify. Dante led him to a run-down shop at the end of a dead-end street. The sign above the door was faded, reading simply, LeBlanc's. Marie LeBlanc, Dante whispered as he opened the door. She's the best wandmaker you've never heard of. Ollivander is good for school kids. Marie makes weapons. The shop was small and cluttered. No neat boxes here, just shelves piled with bones, crystals, driftwoods, and feathers. An old woman sat behind the counter, shuffling a deck of tarot cards. She was blind, her eyes milky white, but her head snapped up as they entered. Dante, she croaked, her voice like dry leaves. You bring trouble. I bring a paying customer, Marie, Dante said, leaning on the counter. The woman turned her head toward Harry. She sniffed the air, then she froze. Her hands started trembling. Mother of God, she whispered. The Triad. She stood up, knocking her chair over. Get out, I will not serve such darkness. Relax, Marie, Dante said, his voice dropping. He's on our side, mostly. Harry stepped forward. He felt the Peverell line stir, the authority of death. He let a fraction of it leak into his voice. I need a conduit, Harry said softly. My old wand is dying. Marie hesitated. She seemed to sense the steel in his voice. Slowly, she sat back down. Show me, she commanded. Harry placed his holly wand on the counter. Marie touched it, and gasped. It is screaming. You are burning it from the inside out. She reached under the counter and pulled out a velvet cloth. She unwrapped it to reveal a peak of wood that looked like it had been charred in a fire. It was black, rough, and twisted. Ebony, she said, from a tree struck by lightning in a graveyard, soaked in the blood of a basilisk. Harry reached for it. As soon as his fingers brushed the wood, the wand shattered. It exploded into splinters. Too weak, Harry said, brushing the dust off his hand. Marie's eyes widened. She pulled out another. Ironwood. Core of dragon heartstrings soaked in lethifold essence. Harry picked it up. It warmed for a second, then cracked down the middle. Still too weak, he said. Marie looked terrified now. I have nothing else. Those were my masterpieces. Harry looked around the shop. His instincts, the Morgana line, were guiding him. He felt a pull toward the back, toward a dusty glass case locked with 7 chains. What's in there? Harry asked, pointing. Marie paled. No, that is not for sale. That is a relic. It is cursed. It has killed every wizard who tried to hold it. Open it, Harry said. It wasn't a request. Dante whistled low. Kid, if Marie says it's cursed, it's bad news. I am the curse, Harry muttered. Marie fumbled with a set of keys, her hands shaking. She unlocked the chains, one by one. She lifted the glass lid. Inside lay a wand, or what looked like one. It was made of bone. Pure white, polished to a shine. But wrapped around the bone was a spiral of dark, metallic wood that pulsed with a faint purple light. Bone of a thestral, Marie whispered. Wrapped in elder wood. The core is a shard of the veil itself. Harry reached out. The moment his fingers closed around the handle, the shop plunged into darkness. A wind whipped up, blowing papers and feathers everywhere. A high-pitched keen filled the air. Harry felt a rush of cold, then heat, then pure power. The wand didn't fight him. It greeted him. It felt like shaking hands with an old friend. The light returned. Harry held the wand. It was humming, a low, dangerous sound. Perfect, Harry said. He swished it. A blade of purple fire slashed through the air, carving a deep gash in the solid stone wall of the shop. Marie was cowering behind the counter. Dante was looking at the wall, eyes wide. Okay, Dante said. That's terrifying. Harry placed a stack of gold galleons on the counter, all the money he had in his pockets. Keep the change. They walked out into the humid New Orleans night. Harry felt energized. The wand was hungry. He was hungry. So, Dante asked, lighting a fresh cigarette. Where to now? We got the power. We got the weapon. Harry looked up at the moon. It was full. I need to send a message, Harry said. To Voldemort. To Dumbledore. To everyone. What kind of message? Harry smirked, his eyes flashing with that tricolored light. A declaration of war. Meanwhile, back in England, the Order of the Phoenix was in chaos. Grimmauld Place was shouting match central. Sirius Black was pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. Remus Lupin was sitting at the table, head in his hands. Molly Weasley was crying in the corner. Dumbledore sat at the head of the table, looking older than anyone had ever seen him. Gone, Sirius roared, slamming his fist onto the table. What do you mean, gone? The wards at Privet Drive are impenetrable. They weren't breached, Sirius, Dumbledore said quietly. They simply ceased to exist. Ceased to exist. Remus looked up, his face pale. Albus, those wards were based on blood magic. Lily's sacrifice. They can't just vanish unless Harry is dead, Molly sobbed. He's not dead, Sirius yelled. I'd know. I'm his godfather. I'd feel it. The sensors detected a massive surge of magic, Kingsley Shacklebolt said, his deep voice grave. It didn't match any known signature. It wasn't Death Eater magic. It wasn't Order magic. It was something else. Something older. And the Dursleys, Sirius spat, alive, traumatized, Tonks reported from the doorway. Vernon is babbling about glowing eyes and birds. The house is a wreck. But Harry is just gone. Dumbledore stared at his blackened hand, the one cursed by the ring. He had hoped he had more time. He had hoped Harry had more time. We must find him, Dumbledore said. Voldemort will feel this disturbance. He will be hunting him. Albus, Snape spoke from the shadows, his voice silky and sneering. The Dark Lord already knows. He is concerned. Concerned. Sirius laughed bitterly. Good. He should be. You do not understand, Black, Snape said, stepping into the light. The Dark Lord felt a shift in the balance. He believes a new player has entered the game. He does not think it is Potter. He thinks it is a rival. A rival? Remus frowned. Who could rival Voldemort? Snape hesitated. He sensed death. Not just the spell, but the entity. He fears a necromancer has risen. The room went silent. Suddenly, a silver Patronus burst through the wall. It wasn't a distinct animal. It was a shapeless mass of raw energy. It spoke with a voice that was distorted, layered, terrified. Gringotts, attacked, dragon, loose. They are taking everything. The Patronus dissolved. Gringotts. Bill Weasley stood up. That's impossible. Gringotts is the safest place in the wizarding world. Not anymore, Dumbledore said, standing up. To Gringotts. Now. Ha. RRY stood in the atrium of Gringotts Bank. The marble floor was cracked. The goblins were cowering behind their counters, spears raised but shaking. Dante was leaning against a pillar, watching the show with a grin. Harry wasn't attacking the goblins. He was just standing there, letting his aura flare. The pressure was immense. I wish to speak to the director, Harry said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the massive hall. The director sees no one. A brave goblin shouted, leveling a spear. Harry looked at him. The Peverell blood flared. Kneel, Harry whispered. The goblin dropped his spear and fell to his knees, eyes glazed over. I am not asking, Harry said. I am the heir of Peverell. I am the scion of Lefay. I am the blood of Thessaly. And I want to access my vaults. All of them. A set of heavy bronze doors at the back of the hall creaked open. An ancient goblin, dressed in gold-embroidered robes, hobbled out. This was Ragnarok, the director. He looked at Harry. He looked at the aura of raw power radiating off him. He looked at the goblin on his knees. Ragnarok bowed. Lo, welcome, Lord Potter Peverell Lefay, Ragnarok said, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and greed. We have been expecting you. Expecting me. Harry raised an eyebrow. The prophecies of the Goblin Nation speak of the Triad, Ragnarok said. The breaker of chains. The one who would unite the ancient blood. We did not think it would be a human. Life is full of surprises, Harry said dryly. Take me down. The deepest vaults. Of course, Ragnarok said. But be warned, my lord. Those vaults have not been opened in 1,000 years. The Guardians. I'll handle the Guardians, Harry said, patting his new bone wand. They rode the cart down. Past the Lestrange vault. Past the dragons. Down into the dark, where the air was thin and the stalactites dripped black water. They stopped at a vault door that had no keyhole. It was a solid slab of obsidian, etched with runes that hurt to look at. The Le Fay vault, Ragnarok whispered. It requires a sacrifice of blood. Harry stepped out of the cart. He sliced his palm with his wand, a quick, painless cut. He pressed his hand to the stone. The obsidian drank his blood. The runes glowed purple. The stone melted away. Inside, it wasn't gold. It was books. Thousands of them. Scrolls. Artifacts that hummed with chaotic energy. And in the center, on a pedestal, a ring. It was a simple band of iron, set with a stone that looked like a trapped storm. Harry walked in. He could hear the whispers of the books. Read me. Learn me. Destroy with me. He picked up the ring. The ring of chaos, Morgana's voice whispered in his head. With this, you can bend reality. You can make the sky bleed. Harry slid the ring onto his finger. A shockwave blasted out, knocking Ragnarok flat. Harry felt his mind expand. He could see the structural weaknesses of the cavern. He could see the magical lay of the bank. He could see the fear in Ragnarok's heart. One down, Harry said. 2 more vaults, Dante called from the cart. Let's make it quick. I think your fan club is arriving. Harry sensed them before he heard them. The Order, and the Death Eaters. Both groups had apparated into the atrium above. Ragnarok, Harry said, get us to the Peverell vault. Fast. The cart plunged deeper. In the atrium, chaos had erupted. The Order had arrived to find the doors blasted open. But the Death Eaters had arrived seconds later. Bellatrix Lestrange was cackling, firing curses at the goblin guards. Lucius Malfoy was looking pale. Where is he? Bellatrix shrieked. Where is the necromancer? Stand down, Bellatrix, Sirius shouted, firing a stunner. Cousin. Bellatrix laughed, deflecting it. Come to die. Spells began to fly. Green and red lights illuminated the hall. Dumbledore was dueling 3 Death Eaters at once, his wand a blur. But then, the floor began to shake. A rumble started deep in the earth, growing louder, closer. The marble floor cracked. What is that? Ron Weasley yelled, ducking a hex. Something big, Hermione gasped. The floor in the center of the atrium exploded upward. A dragon burst through, but it wasn't a normal dragon. It was a skeletal construct, a dragon made of bone and shadow fire. Riding on its back was Harry Potter. But it wasn't the Harry they knew. This Harry was dressed in dragon hide armor he'd found in the vaults. He wore the Ring of Chaos. His eyes were glowing tri-colored fire. And in his hand, the white bone wand was raised high. Enough. Harry's voice was amplified by magic, shaking the very foundations of the building. Everyone froze. Death Eaters and Order members alike. Harry looked down at them from the back of his undead dragon. Harry, Sirius whispered, lowering his wand. Potter. Bellatrix screamed. You dare steal the Dark Lord's power. She raised her wand to kill. Harry didn't even blink. He flicked his wand. Bellatrix didn't just get hit with a spell. The gravity around her intensified 100-fold. She was slammed into the floor, pinned by an invisible hand. She screamed as her bones cracked. I stole nothing, Harry said coldly. I took back what was mine. He looked at Dumbledore. The old man looked heartbroken, terrified. Harry, my boy, Dumbledore called out. What have you done? This magic, it is too dark. It will consume you. You tried to protect me, Professor, Harry said, his voice softening slightly, but losing none of its edge. You tried to keep me in a cage. For the greater good, but the greater good doesn't save people. Power does. This is not you, Hermione cried out, tears in her eyes. Harry, please. Harry looked at Hermione. For a second, the glow in his eyes dimmed. But then, the Peverell blood surged. He couldn't go back. Not now. The Harry you knew was a victim, Harry said. He's gone. He turned to the Death Eaters. Tell Tom, Harry said, using the name like a curse. Tell him I'm coming for him. Tell him his horcruxes won't save him. I can hear them screaming. He raised his wand. The ceiling of Gringotts, the glass dome, shattered. Fly, Harry commanded the dragon. The bone dragon launched itself into the sky, carrying Harry and Dante, who was holding on for dear life and laughing maniacally, into the night. Below, the Order and the Death Eaters stood in the ruin. Watching him go. The war had changed. The boy who lived was dead. The Lord of the Triad had risen. And the world was about to burn. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The wind up here didn't just blow. It screamed. It was a physical assault, a relentless hammering of freezing air that would have stripped the skin off a normal man. But Harry Potter wasn't normal anymore. He wasn't even sure he was entirely human. He sat astride the massive, skeletal neck of the bone dragon, his hands gripping the ivory spurs of its spine, feeling the hum of necromantic magic vibrating through his groin and into his chest. Below them, the Atlantic Ocean was a vast, shifting slab of ink, swallowed by the night. Yo, Potter, you plan on landing this freak show before my ass turns into an icicle? Or are we aiming for the moon? Dante's voice was barely audible over the roar of the wind, even with the magical amplification. He was huddled behind Harry, wrapped in a leather jacket that looked about as warm as a wet paper towel, clutching the dragon's ribcage like his life depended on it. Which, to be fair, it did. Harry didn't look back. He was too busy feeling the world. That was the only way to describe it. Before, magic had been a tool, a wand, a spell, a Latin word. Now, magic was the atmosphere. He could feel the ley lines pulsing in the ocean depths, miles below. He could taste the ozone of a storm brewing 300 miles to the north. He could hear the heartbeat of the dragon, a slow, thumping rhythm of animated dust and ancient will. "We're not staying in Europe," Harry shouted back, his voice cutting through the gale without effort. It sounded deeper, layered with a gravelly resonance that vibrated in his own skull. "Too much heat, too many eyes." "No kidding," Dante yelled. "You just blew the roof off Gringotts and flipped the bird to the entire British wizarding government. I'd say the heat is turned up too. Nuclear." "So where are we going?" "The Amazon, Antarctica, Nevada," Harry said. "Nevada," Dante choked. "As in, Las Vegas. Strippers and slots. You gotta be kidding me. We're fugitives, kid, not on a bachelor party." "There's a dead zone," Harry said, the knowledge surfacing from the Peverell bloodline like a memory he'd never lived. "A place where the ley lines twist and break. Magic doesn't work right there. Tracking spells fail. Owls lose their way. It's a graveyard for energy." "The boneyard," Dante muttered, realization dawning. "I thought that was a myth. A spook story for dark wizards." "It's real," Harry said, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the horizon. "And it's home." The flight took hours, but time felt irrelevant to Harry. He spent the journey meditating, diving into the chaotic ocean of his own soul. The three bloodlines were restless. Morgana was a storm of violet lightning, constantly urging him to unleash chaos, to twist the clouds, to boil the sea just because he could. The Peverell aspect was a cold, silent void, a hunger that wanted to consume the life force of everything they passed. And Eric, though, she was the most dangerous. She was the whisper in his ear, suggesting that every problem could be solved with a knife and a little bit of blood. "Control," Harry told them. "I am the vessel. You work for me." It was a constant battle of wills, a mental arm wrestling match that left sweating despite the freezing altitude. By the time the sun began to bleed over the eastern horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange, they were crossing the American coastline. The landscape below shifted from the green of the east coast to the flat, brown expanse of the Midwest, and finally, the jagged, red-scarred earth of the west. There, Harry pointed. Below them, nestled between two jagged mountain ranges that looked like the teeth of a sleeping giant, was a vast expanse of salt flats. It looked desolate, empty, dead. But to Harry's new eyes, it was glowing. It was a wound in the world. A place where the barrier between the living and the dead was paper thin. "Hold on," Harry warned. He leaned forward, urging the dragon down. The construct folded its skeletal wings and dove. The G-force hit them like a physical blow. The ground rushed up to meet them, a blur of beige and rust. At the last second, Harry pulled up, the dragon's talons scraping furrows into he hard-packed salt as it skidded to a halt. Dust billowed up in a choking cloud. The dragon let out a silent roar, shaking its bony head, before collapsing into a pile of inanimate bones. The magic holding it together had been spent. Harry slid off the pile, his boots crunching on the salt. He stumbled, his legs feeling like jelly. The adrenaline dump was hitting him hard. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. The desert heat was already rising, dry and merciless. Dante scrambled out of the bone pile, coughing and dusting off his jacket. He looked around at the bleak, empty landscape. "Well," Dante spat, lighting a cigarette with a snap of his fingers. "It's a fixer-upper. Got a lot of open concept going on. Where's the house, Potter? Or are we sleeping in the dirt?" Harry didn't answer immediately. He pressed his palms against the salt crust. He could feel it. Underneath the surface, deep in the earth, something was waiting. "Eric, though," Harry whispered. "Blood calls to blood." He took the bone wand, the one he'd stolen from Marie LeBlanc, and slashed his own palm. He didn't even wince. He pressed the bleeding hand onto the white salt. Wake up. The ground rumbled, not an earthquake, but a mechanical grinding, like gears turning after centuries of rust. Dante jumped back, cursing as a fissure opened up in the salt a few yards away. A structure began to rise. It wasn't a castle, it wasn't a manor, it was a fortress of black obsidian and bleached sandstone, pushing its way out of the earth like a jagged tooth. It looked ancient, pre-human, covered in carvings that hurt the eyes. It rose higher and higher, until a massive, windowless tower stood looming over them, casting a long, dark shadow across the flats. What in the hell is that? Dante asked, the cigarette falling from his mouth. A Thessalian sanctuary, Harry said, standing up and wiping his bloody hand on his jeans. The wound was already closing. My ancestors built them all over the world. Emergency bunkers. This one hasn't been used in 2,000 years. Cozy, Dante deadpanned. Does it have Wi-Fi? Harry walked toward the massive stone doors. There was no handle, only a depression in the shape of a skull. He placed his hand on it. The stone groaned, recognizing his genetic signature, and the doors swung inward, revealing a cool, dark interior that smelled of myrrh and stagnant air. Welcome to the Sanctuary of Dust, Harry said. We're safe here. Safe was a relative term. For the next 3 weeks, Harry didn't see the sun. The sanctuary was a labyrinth of tunnels, libraries, training rooms. In ritual chambers, it was fully stocked, magically preserved food, water drawn from an underground aquifer, and enough dark artifacts to make Borgin and Burke's look like a gift shop. But Harry wasn't resting, he was breaking himself. In the center of the sanctuary was the crucible, a circular room with walls made of meteoric iron. This was where Harry spent his days. Again, Dante shouted from the observation deck, a safe 20 feet above the floor. Harry stood in the center of the room, shirtless, sweat slicking his skin. His body had changed. The malnourished frame from the Dursleys was gone, replaced by lean, whipcord muscle. Scars, silver and jagged, traced lines across his torso, remnants of the magic tearing its way out of him. He was juggling fire, not normal fire, but Morgana's fire. Purple, chaotic flames that hissed and popped like living things. I can't hold it, Harry gritted out, his hands trembling. The ball of fire between his palms was growing, destabilizing. You're fighting it, Dante yelled. Stop trying to be a wizard, Harry. Wizards control magic with rules. You're a warlock now. You don't control the storm, you are the storm. Let it flow through you, not around you. Harry roared in frustration and slammed his hands together. The fire exploded outward. It didn't dissipate, it solidified into a shockwave of purple force that slammed into the iron walls, ringing the entire chamber like a bell. Harry was thrown backward, skidding across the stone floor until he hit the wall with a sickening crunch. He lay there for a moment, staring up at the dark ceiling. His ribs throbbed, probably broken, weak, the Erichtho voice hissed in his mind. Break the bone, let it heal stronger. Use the pain, the Peverell voice whispered. Pain is just a signal. Silence it. Harry groaned and sat up. He focused on his ribs. He visualized the bone knitting together, the Peverell magic acting like a supernatural glue. A sharp, hot sensation, and then the pain vanished. You okay, kid? Dante called down, sounding bored. Peachy, Harry spat, standing up. What's next? Next, we talk about your little, public relations, problem, Dante said, hopping down from the ledge. He tossed a folded newspaper at Harry. It was the New York Ghost, the American wizarding paper. Harry caught it. The headline screamed in bold, moving letters. Terror in London. The boy WHO died. Gringotts destroyed. Albus Dumbledore baffled. Dark Lord silent. Harry scanned the article. It was chaos. The Ministry of Magic in London was in lockdown. Fudge was blaming Sirius Black, claiming he'd corrupted Harry. Dumbledore was pleading for Harry to return, claiming he was unwell and under the influence of dark artifacts. But the interesting part was the silence from Voldemort. No attacks, no raids, just silence. He's scared, Harry said, a dark smile touching his lips. He's cautious, Dante corrected. Voldemort isn't an idiot, he knows what he felt in that bank. He knows you're not playing by the rules of wand waving anymore. He's trying to figure out what you are before he makes a move. Let him figure it out, Harry said, crumpling the paper. I need more time. The Morgana line is volatile. It wants to destroy everything. The Peverell line wants to turn this place into a crypt. I need to balance them. You need a focus, Dante said. He walked over to a table covered in weapons he'd pulled from the armory. Wands are great for precision. But for the kind of raw sewage you're pumping out, you need a staff, or a conduit. Harry shook his head. No, I have the bone wand. It works. It works for now, Dante argued. But you're gonna burn it out, just like the others. You need to stop relying on tools and start relying on your blood. Dante pulled a knife from his belt. Thessalian witches didn't use wands, Harry. They used their bodies. Their blood was the catalyst. You need to learn to cast without the crutch. Harry looked at his hands. Wandless magic is impossible for complex spells. For a wizard, yeah, Dante said. But you're a cocktail of 3 apocalypse-level bloodlines. Stop thinking like a Hogwarts student. Swish and flick is for chumps. You want to kill something. You will it to die. Harry closed his eyes. He reached out with his senses. He found a dummy target set up across the room, a heavy wooden log. He didn't think of a spell. He didn't think reducto or confringo. He just thought about the log shattering. He pushed his will into the Peverell void, channeling the concept of entropy. He snapped his fingers. There was no light, no sound. The log simply disintegrated. 1 second it was there, the next it was a pile of sawdust. Harry opened his eyes. He felt a wave of exhaustion, but also a rush of pure, intoxicating power. Better, Dante nodded. But you look like you're gonna pass out. Go eat. We have guests coming. Harry froze. Guests. I made a call, Dante said, examining his fingernails. We need supplies that I can't conjure. Food, intel, rare ingredients for your rituals. I called a broker. You told someone where we are. Harry's voice dropped an octave. The air in the room suddenly freezing. The shadows in the corners lengthened, reaching for Dante. Relax, killer, Dante said, holding up his hands. The broker is neutral. She doesn't care about Dumbledore or Voldemort. She cares about gold, and you have a lot of it. If she betrays us, Harry warned, the shadows curling around his ankles like snakes. Then you can turn her into sawdust, Dante shrugged. But we need her. You can't eat magic, kid. The broker arrived at sunset. She didn't come by car or broom. She arrived in a beaten-up 1969 Ford Mustang that roared across the salt flats, kicking up a trail of white dust. The car stopped in front of the sanctuary, and a woman stepped out. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with piercings in her lip and eyebrow, and hair dyed a violent shade of electric blue. She wore torn jeans and a band t-shirt that said, Weird Sisters, Reunion Tour. Harry watched from the top of the tower. He felt her magic. It was strange, tech magic. Modern, sharp, electric. He descended to meet her. The massive stone doors groaned open. The woman looked up at the looming fortress, then at Harry. She didn't flinch at his eyes, though she did pause for a second to take in the sheer menacing aura he projected. So, she said, popping a bubble of gum, you're the guy who broke the bank. Nice work. I hated those goblins. High fees. You're the broker, Harry asked. Name's Jinx, she said, extending a hand. Her fingernails were painted black with little moving skulls on them. I get things. You pay me. We don't ask questions. That's the deal. Harry ignored her hand. Dante says you can be trusted. Dante owes me money, Jinx grinned. So yeah, I'm motivated to keep him alive. Here's the list he sent. She popped the trunk of the Mustang. It was magically expanded. Inside were crates of canned food, medical supplies, books, and several large, ominous-looking jars. Dragon blood, mercury, nightshade, and a crate of Twinkies, Jinx read off a clipboard. You guys planning a party or a ritual? Both, Dante said, emerging from the shadows of the doorway. Good to see you, Jinx. You weren't followed. Please, Jinx scoffed. I scrambled the trace on this car myself. The Makusa Aurors couldn't track me if I was broadcasting a radio signal. She looked at Harry again, her gaze lingering on his scar. You know, there's a bounty on your head. A big one. How big? Harry asked. 50 million galleons. Alive. 100 million. Dead. Dante whistled. Damn, kid, you're worth more than a small country. Who put up the bounty? Harry asked. The Ministry. The Ministry put up the alive bounty, Jinx said. The dead one. That was anonymous, but word on the street is it came from a shell corporation owned by Malfoy Industries. Harry laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Lucius. He's desperate. He's terrified, Jinx corrected. People are saying you're the next Dark Lord. Some are saying you're the Antichrist. The underground betting pools have 3 to -1 odds you destroy London by Christmas. I don't want to destroy London, Harry said, picking up a crate of dragon blood with one hand as if it weighed nothing. I just want to clean it. Right, Jinx said, eyeing him warily. Well, cleaning usually involves a lot of bleach. Or fire. Jinx, Harry said, stepping closer. I need something else. Something not on the list. Quote, I'm listening. I need information on the horcruxes, Harry said. Jinx blinked. What now? Never heard of 'em. Soul anchors, Harry said. Dark magic. The foul kind of stuff. Jinx's face went pale. Whoa, that's heavy. That's forbidden lore, man. You mess with that, you lose your mind. I already lost my mind, Harry said calmly. Can you get the info or not? Jinx hesitated, looking at Dante, then back at Harry. I know a guy in New York. A collector. He has a library of the blackest books in existence. But he doesn't sell, he trades. What does he want? Unique magic, Jinx said. He collects bloodlines, samples. If you give him a vial of your blood, he might let you look at his books. No, Dante interjected instantly. Absolutely not, Harry. You do not give your blood to anyone. Especially not with what you're carrying. A drop of your blood could level a city block if used in a ritual. Harry looked at Dante, then at Jinx. Set up a meeting, Harry said. Harry, are you deaf? Dante snapped. It's a trap. I know, Harry said. But if this collector has info on horcruxes, he might know where the others are. I need to find them. All of them. In the blood, Dante asked. I'll give him something else, Harry said, his eyes flashing with the Peverell void. I'll give him a choice. That night, the nightmares came back. Harry was standing in a graveyard. Not the little Hangleton one. This was vast, stretching to the horizon. Every tombstone bore the name of someone he knew. Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, Sirius Black, Albus Dumbledore. Voldemort was there, standing atop a hill of skulls. He wasn't the snake-faced monster anymore. He looked like Tom Riddle, handsome, charming, cold. Look at what you will build. Harry, Riddle whispered, his voice echoing in the dream. A kingdom of ash. You think you are different from me. You are worse. I seek order through power. You seek chaos through vengeance. I am nothing like you, Harry shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the screams of the dead. Aren't you? Riddle laughed. Look at your hands. Harry looked down. His hands were covered in blood. But it wasn't his. It was Ron's. You will kill them all, Riddle smiled. The power you wield, it doesn't have friends. It only has fuel. Harry woke up screaming. The stone walls of his bedroom were shaking. A crack had appeared in the ceiling. The bed frame, solid oak, had been pulverized into splinters. Harry sat amidst the wreckage, breathing hard. Sweat drenched his body. Bad dream. Dante was leaning in the doorway, holding a mug of coffee. He didn't look surprised by the destruction. Get out, Harry growled. Drink this, Dante said, walking over and kicking a pile of sawdust aside. He handed Harry the mug. It's got a calming draft in it. And a shot of whiskey. Breakfast of champions. Harry took the mug, his hands shaking. He downed it in one gulp. The burn of the alcohol grounded him. We have a problem, Harry said. Besides the redecorating bill, Voldemort, Harry said, he's in my head. The connection, it's still there. But it's different. He's not blocking me out anymore. He's inviting me in. He wants to talk. Don't, Dante warned. He's a master legilimens. He'll twist your mind. He can try, Harry said. He stood up, stepping over the ruin of his bed. But I need to close the door. I need to sever the link. The Peverell blood, it handles death. It handles souls. I can use it to cut the connection. But, Dante asked. But the connection is a piece of his soul, Harry said quietly. It's a horcrux, Dante. I am a horcrux. Dante froze. The mug in his hand paused halfway to his mouth. Say that again. Dumbledore never told me, Harry said, his voice bitter. But I figured it out. The scar, the parseltongue, the visions. A piece of him is inside me. If I want to kill him, I have to die. Dante stared at him for a long moment. Then he set the mug down on a shelf. Well, Dante said slowly. That sucks. But, you're not just Harry Potter anymore. You're the master of the triad. Normal rules of life and death. They don't apply to you. Meaning, Dante grinned, we don't kill the host to get the parasite. We perform surgery. Invasive, magical, incredibly dangerous surgery. The ritual of bone and ash. Harry said, the knowledge surfacing from the Erictho line. It can separate a soul from a vessel. Exactly, Dante said, but you need a conduit. Something to draw the soul fragment into. You can't just let it loose, it'll possess the first thing it touches. Harry looked at the corner of the room, where his trunk lay. He walked over and opened it. He pulled out a small, golden ball. The snitch. The first one he'd ever caught. Flesh memory, Harry muttered. What? This snitch, Harry said. It opens at the close. Dumbledore left it to me in his will, or he would have. I felt the magic on it before I left. It's a container. Okay, Dante said, so we suck the soul piece out of your head and shove it in the ball. How? I need to die, Harry said flatly. Dante blinked. Come again. Quote, the ritual requires the subject to be in a state of clinical death for exactly 3 minutes, Harry explained, as if reading a manual. The soul loosens its grip when the body dies. That's when we grab it. Harry, Dante said, rubbing his temples. I'm a bad influence, I know. But killing you, that's a bit above my pay grade. You won't kill me, Harry said. I'll do it myself. I need you to bring me back. And if I can't, then collect the bounty, Harry said. 100 million galleons, remember. The ritual took place at midnight on the Salt Flats. Jinx had drawn a massive circle of runes in mercury and crushed bone. Candles made of black fat flickered in the windless air. Harry stood in the center, stripped to the waist. The desert air was freezing. But he was burning up. The anticipation of death was a strange sensation, not fear, but curiosity. The Peverell blood was singing. It wanted to go home. Ready? Dante asked. He was standing outside the circle, holding a massive syringe filled with a glowing green liquid, adrenaline and a revival potion Jinx had whipped up. Do it, Harry said. He held the snitch in his left hand. In his right, he held a vial of poison, nightshade and basilisk venom, diluted just enough to stop the heart but not melt the organs. He drank it. The pain was immediate, fire in his veins, his vision blurred, his knees buckled. It comes, the Peverell voice whispered. The embrace. Harry fell to the salt. His heart hammered, once, twice, then stopped. Darkness. Absolute, crushing darkness. Then, a light, not a tunnel, a train station, King's Cross, but it was ruined. The glass roof was shattered, the tracks were twisted. And under a bench, something was whimpering. A small, flayed creature. Looking like a fetus made of raw meat. Voldemort's soul fragment. Harry stood over it. He wasn't naked this time. He was dressed in robes of shadow. He held the bone wand. You don't belong here, Harry said. The creature hissed. I am you. No, Harry said. He reached down. He didn't feel pity. He felt disgust. He grabbed the creature by its neck. It screamed, a high, thin sound. You are nothing, Harry said. He pulled. In the real world, Dante watched Harry's body convulse. Black smoke began to pour from Harry's scar. It twisted and writhed, forming a screaming face. Now, Jinx yelled. Put it in the snitch. Dante didn't have magic, but he had aim. He threw the snitch into the circle. It hovered over Harry's chest. The black smoke, sensing a vessel, dived into the golden ball. The snitch snapped shut with a sound like a pistol shot. Clear, Dante yelled, sprinting into the circle. He jammed the syringe into Harry's chest and depressed the plunger. Come on, kid, don't you dare die on me now. Harry gasped. It was a horrible, wet sound. His back arched off the ground. His eyes snapped open. They were no longer tricolored. They were solid black. No whites, no irises. Just the void. Then, the color flooded back. Green, gold, purple. Harry collapsed back onto the salt, coughing up black bile. Did we get it? Harry wheezed. Dante picked up the snitch. It was vibrating violently, hot to the touch. He tossed it into a lead-lined box Jinx was holding. We got it, Dante said, wiping sweat from his forehead. You crazy son of a bitch. You actually did it. Harry lay on the ground, staring up at the stars. The connection was gone. The constant, low-level headache he'd had since he was 1 year old, it was vanished. His mind was silent. I'm free, Harry whispered. But as he lay there, he felt something else. The Peverell line. It had tasted death, and it liked it. It wasn't satisfied with just the ritual. It wanted more. Harry sat up. He looked at the vast expanse of the Salt Flats. Not yet, Harry said. We're not done. He stood up, ignoring Dante's protests. He walked to the edge of the rune circle. He raised his hands. The sanctuary needs guards, Harry said. Harry, stop, Dante warned. You just died. You're tapped out. I have never been more alive, Harry said. His voice was layering again, the deep resonance returning. He slammed his hands onto the earth. Rise. It wasn't a request, it was a command to the earth itself. The boneyard lived up to its name. Under the salt, deep in the strata, were the remains of ancient things. Animals, travelers, natives, things that had died in this wasteland for thousands of years. The ground began to churn. Skeletal hands clawed their way out of the salt. Animal skulls, human ribcages, they pulled themselves free, shaking off the dust of centuries. Jinx screamed and scrambled onto the hood of her Mustang. Hundreds of them, an army of the dead. They weren't mindless zombies. They were constructs, held together by Harry's will and the Peverell magic. Their eyes glowed with the same purple fire as Harry's wand. They turned to Harry, and they bowed. Harry stood before his legion. He felt the drain on his magic, but it was manageable. The sanctuary was amplifying him. Perimeter, Harry commanded. Kill anything that isn't us. The skeletons turned and marched into the darkness, forming a ring around the fortress. Harry turned back to Dante and Jinx. Dante looked horrified. Jinx looked like she was about to throw up. What? Harry asked, wiping the black bile from his mouth. You just raised an army, Dante said softly. Harry, that's necromancy. That's the blackest of the black. It's security, Harry said, walking past them toward the fortress. And we're going to need it. Why? Jinx asked, her voice trembling. Harry stopped at the door. He looked back at them. Because I know where the next horcrux is, Harry said. And it's not in a bank or a shack. Where is it? Dante asked. Harry smiled grimly. It's at Hogwarts, thousands of miles away. In the headmaster's office, Albus Dumbledore woke with a start. Fawkes the Phoenix let out a low, mournful trill. Dumbledore walked to the window. He looked out over the grounds. The forbidden forest was silent. The lake was calm, but he felt it, a cold wind blowing from the west. A wind that smelled of ancient dust and broken chains. He looked at the instruments on his desk. The silver monitors that tracked Harry's life force. They had stopped spinning. They weren't destroyed. They were just still. As if Harry had stepped out of existence. He has severed the link, Dumbledore whispered to the empty room. Tom is blind. It should have been good news. Dumbledore felt a pit of dread in his stomach. Harry had achieved something Dumbledore had failed to do for years. And he had done it in weeks. But at what cost? The fire in the grate flared green. Severus Snape stepped out, his face pale. Albus, Snape said urgently. The dark mark. It is changing. Snape pulled up his sleeve. The skull and snake were there. But the snake was writhing in pain. And the skull was cracking. He feels it, Snape said. The Dark Lord, he feels a piece of himself vanish. He knows, Dumbledore said, closing his eyes. Harry has destroyed the horcrux within him. Destroyed, Snape gasped. But that would kill the boy. Harry is not dead, Severus, Dumbledore said, turning back to the window. I fear he has become something far more terrified than dead. He looked at the reflection of his own weary face in the glass. He is coming back, Dumbledore said. Not as a student, not as a savior. Then as what? As a conqueror. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The silence in the boneyard was heavy, a physical weight that pressed down on the salt flats like a suffocating blanket. It was the kind of silence that didn't just mean a lack of noise. It meant the absence of life. But for Harry Potter, sitting cross-legged on the highest parapet of the obsidian tower, the silence was loud. It buzzed with the static of 1,000 undead minds. A hive of skeletal warriors standing vigil in the darkness below, waiting for a command that was as simple as a twitch of his finger. It had been a week since the ritual. A week since he had died and come back. A week since he had ripped the piece of Voldemort's soul out of his own head and shoved it into a golden ball. He looked at his hands. They were steady now. The tremors that had plagued him since the awakening were gone. His skin was pale, almost translucent in the moonlight, veins tracing maps of blue and black fire beneath the surface. He felt hollow, but it was a good hollow. A clean hollow, like a gun barrel after it's been scrubbed, ready for the next round. You're brooding again, Potter. It's bad for the complexion. Harry didn't turn. He sensed Dante before the man even opened the access door. He could smell the cheap tobacco and the distinct metallic tang of gun oil that clung to the mercenary-like cologne. I'm not brooding, Harry said, his voice carrying that low, resonant hum that made the air vibrate. I'm listening. Dante stepped onto the roof, shivering slightly against the desert chill. He walked over to the edge and looked down. The army of skeletons, hundreds of them, stood in perfect, unmoving ranks in the moonlight. Creepy, Dante muttered, taking a drag of his cigarette. Useful, but definitely creepy. Jinx is downstairs freaking out, by the way. She says the magical signature coming off this place is lighting up the Makusa sensors like a Christmas tree. We have maybe 24 hours before American Aurors come knocking. Let them come, Harry said, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The desert is hungry. Yeah, let's not start an international incident just yet, Dante sighed. We have bigger fish to fry. You said Hogwarts was the target. You said you knew where the next piece was. Harry stood up. The movement was fluid, unnatural. He didn't use his hands to push off. He simply rose, gravity seemingly forget. Ting to hold him down for a split second. The diadem of Ravenclaw, Harry said. Lost for centuries, hidden in a room that only appears when you need it. The room of requirement, Dante nodded. I've heard rumors. A pocket dimension. Dangerous if you don't know the rules. I know the rules, Harry said. I spent half my 5th year in there teaching kids how to stun each other. But Voldemort, he used it as a junkyard. He hid a piece of his soul under a pile of broken furniture and forgotten dreams. So we break in, grab the tiara, and break out, Dante summarized. Simple. Except for the part where it's the most heavily guarded school in the world, run by the most powerful wizard alive, and currently surrounded by Dementors and Ministry stooges. Dumbledore isn't the problem, Harry said, a shadow crossing his face. He won't kill me. He'll try to save me. That makes him predictable. And the Dementors, Harry turned to Dante, and for a second, the Peverell darkness eclipsed his eyes completely. Dementors guard Azkaban because they feed on misery, Harry whispered. They answer to fear, but they bow to death. I am the master of the Peverell line. To them, I am royalty. Dante stared at him for a moment, then let out a short, bark-like laugh. Royalty, right, king of the maggots. So, how are we getting across the pond? Broom, portkey, or are you gonna summon an other bone dragon and scare the piss out of the Raff? Shadow walk, Harry said. The Peverell transport, it's instantaneous, but it requires a tether. I need a way to lock onto the location. You need a memory, Dante realized. A strong one. Harry closed his eyes. He thought of Hogwarts, not the warm halls or the feasts. He thought of the forbidden forest. The smell of damp pine and rotting leaves. The feeling of being watched. The place where he had faced Aragog. The place where he had seen dragons. I have it, Harry said. Get Jinx. Tell her to pack the breaching gear. We leave in 10 minutes. The transition wasn't like apparition. Apparition was a squeeze, a pop, a feeling of being forced through a rubber tube. Shadow walking was simply stepping through a curtain. One moment, Harry was standing on the sun-baked salt of Nevada. The next, his boots were sinking into the soft, freezing mud of the Scottish Highlands. The air was thick with mist and the smell of ancient pine. It was night here, too, but a darker, heavier night. The trees of the forbidden forest towered over them, their branches weaving a canopy that blocked out the stars. Dante stumbled out of the shadow behind Harry, retching dryly. Jinx followed, looking green, clutching a heavy canvas bag filled with tech magical disruptors. I hate that, Jinx gasped, wiping her mouth. Feels like someone walked over my grave. Technically, we just walked through everyone's grave, Harry said, scanning the tree line. His vision shifted. Thermal, magical, necrotic. He could see the heat signatures of sleeping centaurs miles away. He could see the magical wards of the castle, a shimmering dome of gold and silver in the distance. We're 3 miles out, Dante whispered, checking a heavily modified compass. Patrols. Acromantulas to the east, Harry noted, pointing to a patch of darkness that seemed to writhe. Thestrals to the north, and something else, something cold. As if on cue, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. The mist began to freeze on the pine needles. A wave of despair washed over the clearing, a sudden, crushing weight that made Jinx whimper and drop to her knees. Gliding through the trees, black cloaks trailing like smoke, came a dozen Dementors. They were hunting. Harry, Dante hissed, his hand going to the enchanted pistol at his hip. We have company. Harry didn't draw his wand. He didn't cast a Patronus. He simply stood there, waiting. The Dementors sensed them, the fresh souls, the emotions. They surged forward, a tidal wave of rot and hunger. Harry, Jinx screamed as the lead Dementor swooped down, its scabbed hands reaching for her face. Harry stepped in front of her. He looked up into the hooded void of the creature's face. He didn't feel fear. He felt annoyance. Kneel, Harry said. It wasn't a shout. It was a vibration, a command spoken in the language of the grave. The Peverell blood in his veins boiled, sending out a pulse of awe. Ority that hit the Dementors like a physical wall. The lead Dementor froze. It screeched, a sound like tearing metal. It tried to back away, but Harry's will held it in place. I said, kneel. Harry raised his hand. The shadows around the clearing lashed out, forming tendrils of darkness that wrapped around the Dementors' throats. He slammed them into the mud. The creatures of nightmare, the guards of hell, lay prostrate before him. Shivering not with cold, but with submission. Go to the castle, Harry commanded, his voice cold and absolute. Circle the astronomy tower. Let no one leave. Let no one enter. If the order tries to stop you, feast. The Dementors rose, bowing low, and streamed toward the castle like a river of black smoke. Dante stared at Harry, his gun hanging uselessly at his side. Okay, that was new. They know their master, Harry said, turning toward the castle. Let's move. The wards will be alerted by the Dementors' movement. We have 5 minutes before the order wakes up. They moved through the forest like ghosts. Harry led them not to the front gates, but to the base of a cliff near the Black Lake. He found a hidden fissure in the rock, overed by illusion spells that had faded centuries ago. The old smuggler's route, Harry explained, clearing away the vines with a wave of his hand. Fred and George never found this one. It leads directly to the dungeons. They entered the tunnel. It was cramped, damp, and smelled of rats. They walked in silence for 10 minutes before the tunnel opened up into a stone wall. Dead end, Jinx whispered. No, Harry said. He pressed his ear to the stone. He could hear the distant hum of the castle's magic. We're behind the Slytherin common room. He placed his bone wand against the stone. Descendium. The wall melted away like wax, revealing a dark, torch-lit corridor. They stepped out onto the dungeon floor. The castle felt different. It wasn't the warm, magical home Harry remembered. It felt tense. The portraits on the walls were sleeping fitfully. The air tasted of anxiety. Where to? Dante whispered. 7th floor, Harry said. We need to be quick. They moved through the shadows, avoiding the patrols of Filch and Mrs. Norris. But as they reached the grand staircase, their luck ran out. Potter. The voice came from the top of the stairs. It was sharp, cold, and incredulous. Harry looked up. Standing on the landing, wand drawn, was Draco Malfoy. He looked terrible, gaunt, pale, with dark circles under his eyes that rivaled Harry's own. He was wearing his prefect badge, but it looked heavy on his robes. Malfoy, Harry said, stepping out of the shadows. You look like hell. Draco's wand hand shook. It is you. The prophets said you were dead. They said you destroyed Gringotts. I'm busy. Draco, Harry said, starting up the stairs. Get out of the way. No, Draco shouted, a hysterical edge to his voice. I can't. He will kill me if I let you pass. He knows you're coming. Voldemort isn't here, Harry said, continuing his ascent. But I am. Stupefy. Draco screamed. The red jet of light flew at Harry. Harry didn't block it, he simply slapped it away with his bare hand. The spell dissipated into harmless sparks against his skin. The magic resistance of the basilisk venom and dragon blood in his system was absolute against schoolyard hexes. Draco stared, horrified. What are you? Harry reached the landing. He loomed over Draco. He could smell the fear on the boy. It was potent. I'm the guy who's going to save you from your task, Harry said quietly. Draco flinched. My task. The cabinet, Harry said. You're trying to fix the vanishing cabinet to let the Death Eaters in. I know. Draco collapsed against the banister, sobbing dryly. He'll kill my mother. I have to do it. Harry grabbed Draco by the front of his robes and hauled him up. Go to the room of requirement, Harry said. Wait outside. If anyone comes, you didn't see me. You were patrolling. Do this, and I promise you, Voldemort won't touch your mother. Because he'll be too busy dealing with me. Draco looked into Harry's eyes, the tri-colored abyss. He saw the monster there. And strangely, he found hope. Because monsters could kill other monsters. Draco nodded, terrified, and ran down the corridor. Soft spot for the ferret? Dante asked, coming up behind Harry. He's a pawn, Harry said. Pawns are useful. They reached the 7th floor. The tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy was there, looking as ridiculous as ever. Harry pace. D3 times in front of the blank wall. I need the place where things are hidden. I need the place where things are hidden. I need the place where things are hidden. The door appeared. It wasn't the usual ornate oak door. It was made of charred wood and rusted iron. The castle knew who was asking. It knew what Harry was. Harry pushed the door open. The Cathedral of the Hidden was vast. Mount. Ains of junk stretched to the ceiling, broken furniture, thousands of books, winged catapults, bottles of potion that had turned to sludge. Harry closed his eyes. He reached out to the horcrux. Call to me. It was faint, a whisper of malice buried under centuries of magical debris. But it was there. Split up, Harry ordered. It's a diadem, a tiara, looks like silver and sapphires. Don't touch it with your bare skin. Jinx pulled out a scanner. Got a weird reading in Sector 4. High-level dark radiation. They climbed over a mound of desks. Harry felt the pull getting stronger. His scar didn't hurt. That link was severed, but the ring of chaos on his finger grew warm. It sensed a rival. There, Harry pointed. On top of a bust of a warlock with a chipped nose, sitting atop a dusty wig, was the diadem of Ravenclaw. It was beautiful, gleaming even in the dim light. Harry climbed up the pile. He reached for it. I wouldn't do that, Potter. Harry froze. Severus Snape stepped out from behind a vanishing cabinet. His wand was level with Harry's chest. His face was unreadable, a mask of occlumency so perfect it was like looking at stone. Professor, Harry said, not lowering his hand. You're up late. The headmaster felt the ward's breach, Snape said softly. He sent the order to the gates. But I knew you wouldn't use the front door. You always did have a penchant for the dramatic. Put the wand away, Severus, Harry said. You can't stop this. You are destroying yourself, Snape sneered, though there was no heat in it. You have dabbled in powers you cannot comprehend. Necromancy, blood magic, you are becoming the very thing you swore to destroy. I am becoming what is necessary, Harry countered. Voldemort doesn't play by the rules. Dumbledore does. That's why Dumbledore is losing. And you think this is winning? Snape gestured to Harry's appearance, the pale skin, the glowing eyes. You are a corpse walking. I am the master of death, Harry said. There is a difference. Harry moved his hand toward the diadem. Sectum Sempra. Snape didn't hesitate. The dark curse, his own invention, slashed through the air. Harry didn't dodge. He didn't shield. The invisible sword hit Harry's chest. It should have sliced him open from shoulder to hip. It should have killed him. But the spell hit Harry's skin and shattered. Harry looked down at his torn shirt. The skin underneath was uncut. There was a faint silver line where the curse had impacted, glowing for a second before fading. Eriko's blessing, Harry said, looking at a stunned Snape. My blood is hardened against cutting curses. You'll have to do better. Snape stepped back, his eyes widening. For the first time, the mask slipped. He looked afraid. What have you done? Snape whispered. Harry grabbed the diadem. As soon as his skin touched the metal, a scream ripped through the room. Not a human scream. A psychic shriek that shattered glass and cracked the stone floor. Black smoke poured from the diadem, forming the shape of Voldemort. You! The smoke riddle roared. Traitor! Thief! Harry didn't flinch. He held the diadem tight. Dante! The box! Dante scrambled up the pile, holding a lead-lined box similar to the one they used for the snitch. Harry jammed the diadem into the box. The smoke tried to fight, trying to latch onto Harry's arm, to possess him. I will unmake you. You're just jewelry, Harry spat. He slammed the lid shut. Jinx slapped a magical seal on top, welding it closed with a burst of tech magic. The screaming stopped. Harry stood there, breathing heavily. He looked down at Snape. Tell Dumbledore, Harry said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Tell him I have the diadem. Tell him the cup is next. And tell him to stay out of my way. Harry. Snape lowered his wand. The Dark Lord, he is coming here. Now. He felt the diadem awaken. Harry smiled. It was a terrifying, bloodless smile. Good, Harry said. I'm counting on it. The castle shook. A boom echoed from the grounds. Then another. He's breaching the wards, Dante yelled, checking his watch. We gotta go, boss. Now. No, Harry said. He looked at the walls of the room of requirement. We don't run. Not this time. Harry, we have the prize. Jinx shouted. Mission accomplished. Let's shadow walk out of here. Voldemort is at the gate, Harry said, his eyes burning with the fires of Morgana. If we leave, he burns the school. He kills the students. He kills the order. Harry jumped down from the pile of junk. He landed in front of Snape. You want to save Lily's son? Harry asked Snape. Then help me get the students to the Great Hall. I'm going to buy you some time. Snape looked at Harry. He saw the monster. But he also saw the eyes, Lily's eyes. Twisted by power, but still hers. Go, Snape said, turning his swirling cloak. I will sound the alarm. Harry turned to Dante and Jinx. Get the diadem to the boneyard, Harry commanded. And leave you here, Dante argued. Not a chance in hell. That's an order, Dante. Harry roared, the room shaking with his voice. Secure the horcrux. I will deal with Tom. Dante gritted his teeth. He looked at Jinx. Go. Take the box. What about you? Jinx asked. I'm staying, Dante said, pulling 2 submachine guns from under his coat. These were enchanted, runes carved into the barrels. Someone has to cover his exit. Jinx nodded, grabbed the box, and vanished into the shadows. Harry and Dante stood alone in the room of requirement. You realize this is suicide, Dante said, checking the ammo. Voldemort plus Death Eaters versus us. In the castle, Harry said. He placed his hand on the floor. Hogwarts is old magic. It has a consciousness. It knows who I am. Awaken, Harry whispered to the stones. The room groaned. They ran out of the room of requirement and into the corridor. The battle had already begun. Below, in the entrance hall, the front doors had been blasted inward. Giants were stepping through the ruin, swinging massive clubs. Death Eaters were streaming in behind them, firing curses at the retreating students. McGonagall was there, dueling 3 Death Eaters at once. Flitwick was charming statues to fight. But they were being overwhelmed. Harry stood on the marble staircase, looking down at the slaughter. Voldemort stepped through the smoke. He looked exactly like he did in the graveyard, snake-like, red eyes, terrifying. He exuded power that made the air taste like ash. He looked up. He locked eyes with Harry. The noise of the battle seemed to fade. Harry Potter, Voldemort's voice boomed, amplified without a wand. Come to die. Harry walked down the stairs. Step by step, he didn't rush. You're looking old, Tom, Harry called out. His voice was calm, cutting through the chaos. Retirement didn't suit you. Voldemort's eyes narrowed. He sensed the change. He sensed the missing piece of his soul. He sensed the ancient blood. You have stolen power you do not understand, Voldemort hissed. You are a thief. I'm a collector, Harry said. He reached the bottom of the stairs. He was 10 yards from the Dark Lord. Giants loomed on either side. Kill him, Voldemort commanded the giants. 2 massive clubs swung down, enough force to crush a tank. Harry didn't move. He didn't raise a wand. He raised his hand, palm open. Morgana. A dome of purple lightning erupted around him. The clubs hit the dome and disintegrated. The lightning arc traveled up the wood, shattering the weapons, and slammed into the giants. They didn't just fall. They were blasted backward, their skin scorched, flying out through the broken doors like ragdolls. Silence fell over the hall. Harry lowered his hand. The lightning crackled around his fingers. Is that the best you have? Harry asked. Voldemort's face contorted with rage. Avada Kedavra. The green light rushed toward Harry. The killing curse. Unblockable. Harry raised his bone wand. Peverell. A wall of shadow rose from the floor. Not just darkness, but void. The killing curse hit the wall and was swallowed. It didn't bounce. It didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. Voldemort stepped back, genuine shock on his face. Impossible. You fear death, Tom, Harry said, walking forward. The shadows swirled around him, forming a cloak of living darkness. You ran from it your whole life. You tore your soul apart to escape it. Harry stopped 3 feet from Voldemort. He towered over the Dark Lord, levitating slightly on a cushion of wind. I invited death in, Harry whispered, and we are very close friends. Voldemort screamed in fury. He unleashed a torrent of fiendfire, a massive snake of cursed fire. Harry countered with water, but not normal water. He summoned the Black Lake. A torrent of freezing, dark water smashed through the side windows of the Great Hall, answering Harry's call. It slammed into the fire, creating a cloud of steam that blinded everyone. In the steam, Harry moved. He didn't cast a spell. He punched Voldemort in the face. It was a physical blow, reinforced with the strength of the Thessalian blood. Voldemort's nose, what little he had, crunched. The Dark Lord was thrown back, skidding across the stone floor. Harry stood over him. You bleed, Harry said, looking at the black blood on his knuckles. That means you can die. Voldemort scrambled up, looking wild. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that he might lose. He did the only thing he could. He fled. He turned in to a cloud of black smoke and shot out of the broken doors, screaming a retreat order to his followers. The Death Eaters, seeing their master run, panicked. They broke ranks and fled into the night. Harry stood alone in the entrance hall. The steam was clearing. The Order members were staring at him. McGonagall had her hand over her mouth. The students were peeking out from the Great Hall. They didn't cheer. They were terrified. Harry looked at them. He saw the fear in their eyes. He realized that he wasn't their hero anymore. He was just another monster, a bigger one than the one that had just left. Harry. Ginny Weasley stepped forward, her face pale. Is that you? Harry looked at her. He felt a pang of something, regret, longing. But the triad smothered it. Emotions were weaknesses. Stay safe, Ginny, Harry said, his voice devoid of warmth. He turned to Dante, who was reloading his guns by a gargoyle. We're done here, Harry said. That was dramatic, Dante panted. You punched the Dark Lord in the face. I think that's a first. He knows now, Harry said. He knows he can't beat me in a duel. He'll go for the other horcruxes. He'll try to secure them. Then we need to be faster, Dante said. Harry nodded. He raised his wand. The shadows gathered around them. Where to? Dante asked. The cup is in Gringotts, Harry said. But we already raided Gringotts. He'll move it, or he'll guard it with something worse than a dragon. So we hunt, Harry said. The shadows swallowed them. In the aftermath, the Great Hall was silent. Albus Dumbledore walked slowly into the entrance hall. He had arrived too late to fight, having been securing the perimeter. He saw the destruction. He saw the scorched stone where the giants had fallen. He saw the water damage from the lake. Snape walked up to him. He looked shaken. He took the diadem, Snape said quietly. And he defeated the Dark Lord. Physically, Dumbledore asked, examining the traces of magic left behind. It felt ancient, cold. He humbled him, Snape said. Potter, he is no longer a wizard, Albus. He is a force of nature. Dumbledore picked up a piece of the shattered front door. The prophecy, Dumbledore murmured. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. He has the power, Snape said. But does he have the soul? Dumbledore looked out into the night, toward the forbidden forest where the shadows were still lengthening. I fear, Dumbledore said, that in saving the world, Harry Potter has decided to conquer it. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The heat in the Nevada desert didn't just rise, it radiated like the inside of a convection oven set to broil. The sun hammered down on the white expanse of the salt flats, turning the boneyard into a blinding mirror of heat, haze and silence. But inside the obsidian tower, the temperature was a steady, unnatural chill, the kind you feel when you walk past an open grave in winter. Harry Potter stood in the center of the crucible. The room, with its meteoric iron walls, was vibrating. On a pedestal made of black basalt sat the diadem of Ravenclaw. It looked innocuous, a delicate tiara of tarnished silver and sapphires. But to Harry's tri-blood sight, it was screaming. It was a cancer made of metal, bleeding a thick, oily smoke that smelled of tar and old hatred. You sure about this, boss? Dante was leaning against the heavy iron doorframe, his arms crossed over his chest. He was wearing sunglasses indoors, chewing on a toothpick, looking for all the world like a bored bodyguard at a heavy metal concert. But his hand was hovering near the enchanted Glock on his hip. He could feel the pressure in the room. It made his teeth ache. It's a piece of his soul, Dante, Harry said, his voice low and grinding. Like tectonic plates shifting. It doesn't want to die. It knows what I am. And what are you today? Dante asked, tilting his head. Because yesterday you were, brooding warlord. And the day before you were, scary necromancer guy. I'm losing track of the schedule. Harry didn't answer. He walked toward the pedestal. He wasn't wearing a shirt. The scars on his chest, the silver lines from the ritual, the jagged bolt on his heart, were pulsing with a rhythmic light. Green, purple, black. He didn't raise his bone wand. He didn't need it for this. This was personal. He reached out with his left hand, the hand of the Peverell line. The air around his fingers darkened, light bending away as if afraid to touch him. Entropy, Harry thought. Decay. The end of all things. He touched the diadem. The reaction was instantaneous. The diadem didn't just break, it fought back. A shockwave of pure psychic agony blasted outward, slamming into Harry's mental shields. Potter. The voice wasn't in his ears, it was in his blood. It was Voldemort, but a younger, sharper version. The riddle from the diary, magnified by the wisdom of Ravenclaw. You think you can unmake me? I am knowledge. I am the secret history of the world. Images flooded Harry's mind. Not memories of murder this time, but equations. Spells. The location of every hidden room in Hogwarts. The cure for dragon pox. The formula for the Philosopher's Stone. The diadem was trying to bribe him. Take me, it whispered. Wear me, and you will be a god. Harry laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. I don't want to be a god. Harry whispered back to the screaming metal. I just want to be the janitor. He squeezed. The Peverell magic surged. It bypassed the physical structure of the sill. Viren attacked the conceptual anchor of the soul. It was the magical equivalent of pouring acid on a hard drive. The diadem shrieked, a high, glass-shattering sound that made Dante wince and cover his ears. Black smoke poured from the sapphires, forming the face of Tom Riddle, twisted in agony. No, I am eternal. Everything ends, Harry said. Even you. He didn't just destroy it. He consumed it. The Erectho bloodline, the Thessalian witch blood, was parasitic. It fed on power. And Harry, instinctively, pulled the dying energy of the horcrux into himself. He didn't take the soul, that was poison. He took the knowledge. He felt his mind expand. It was like a library suddenly opening its doors in his brain. He saw the ley lines of Europe. He understood the arithmancy behind the killing curse. He saw the architectural weak points of the Ministry of Magic. The diadem crumbled into gray dust. The smoke vanished. Harry stood there, breathing heavy, his eyes glowing with a renewed, terrifying intelligence. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, not from weakness, but from an overdose of information. Harry, Dante took a step forward. You good, your eyes are spinning. Literally. Harry blinked, and the vertical pupils stabilized. He turned to Dante. He felt different, sharper. Cold logic was now layering over the raw rage of the Morgana blood. I know where the cup is, Harry said. Hufflepuff's cup, Dante asked. Gringotts. No, Harry said, walking past Dante into the hallway. He moved it. Just before the raid, he didn't trust the goblins. He moved it to the one place he felt truly safe. The place where he hid when he was a ghost. Albania, Dante guessed, following him. Great. I love Eastern Europe in the summer. The vampires are so friendly. Not just Albania, Harry corrected. The fortress of Vlor, an old Ottoman stronghold built on a blood spring. He's fortified it. It's not a hiding spot anymore, Dante. It's a trap. A trap for who? For me. They convened in the war room, a cavernous chamber Jinx had set up with stolen Muggle tech and magical maps. The walls were covered in screens showing satellite feeds, magical energy graphs, and news reports from the wizarding world. Jinx was sitting at a console, typing furiously on a keyboard that sparked every time she hit the spacebar. She looked tired. Her electric blue hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she was subsisting entirely on energy drinks and panic. You guys are gonna want to see this, Jinx said without looking up. The magical signature in Albania just spiked. Like, off the charts spiked. It looks like a nuclear detonation, but magical. Harry looked at the screen. A red pulse was throbbing in the mountains of Albania. He's summoning, Harry said. He knows I'm coming for the cup. He's calling in the heavy hitters. Define, heavy hitters, Dante asked, cleaning his nails with a knife. In fury, Harry listed, his voice devoid of emotion. Thousands of them, the local vampire clans, werewolves, and, Harry squinted at the energy reading, the Ravenclaw knowledge providing the context. Quote. Demons, demons. Jinx stopped typing. Like, horns and pitchforks demons. Elemental demons, Harry corrected. Fire, shadow, things that don't belong on this plane. He's tearing the veil to bring them through. So, suicide, Dante concluded. We're going to walk into a fortress guarded by the legions of hell to steal a cup. We're not walking, Harry said. We're dropping. He turned to the other side of the room. Creature. With a crack like a whip, the old house elf appeared. He looked better than he had a week ago. Harry had summoned him from Grimmauld Place, using the authority of the Black Bloodline. He had healed the elf's madness, cleaned the locket's poison from his mind, and given him a new purpose. Creature was now wearing a uniform, a miniature tactical vest with the crest of the House of Black stitched over the heart. Master calls, Creature croaked, bowing low. Creature is ready to serve the noble house. The locket, Harry said. Is it done? Creature has destroyed the filth, the elf said, his eyes shining with vindictive glee. Creature used the master's basilisk venom. It screamed. It died. Regulus is avenged. Good, Harry said. That leaves two. The cup, and the snake, and the man, Dante added. The man is the easy part, Harry said. Getting to him is the problem. Harry, Jinx interrupted, spinning her chair around. We have another problem. A domestic one. What? The perimeter sensors just tripped. Someone's here. In the boneyard. Harry frowned. Makusa. No. Jinx shook her head. It's a portkey arrival. Authorized. High-level clearance. Harry felt it then. A ripple in the wards. Familiar magical signatures. Warm, concerned, and utterly unwanted. Stay here, Harry ordered. He walked out of the war room and headed for the main entrance. The massive S-tone doors of the sanctuary groaned open, revealing the blinding white of the salt flats. Standing there, looking wildly out of place in the desert heat, were two figures. Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley. They looked older, harder. The war had touched them too. Hermione was clutching a beaded bag, her wand drawn. Ron looked like he hadn't slept in a week, his face pale under the freckles. Y saw Harry emerge from the darkness of the fortress. They froze. Harry stood in the shadow of the doorway. He didn't look like the friend they remembered. He was shirtless, covered in runic scars, earring black combat trousers and dragon hide boots. His skin was pale as marble, and his eyes were the abyss. Harry, Hermione whispered, her voice cracking. Go home, Harry said. His voice carried across the distance without him raising it. We're not leaving you, mate, Ron shouted, stepping forward. Dumbledore told us where you were. He said you're sick. That the magic is eating you. Dumbledore lies, Harry said calmly. Or maybe he just doesn't understand. I'm not sick, Ron. I'm evolved. Evolved. Hermione stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. You decimated Gringotts. You unleashed Dementors on Hogwarts. Harry, this isn't you. You're acting like him. I am nothing like him, Harry said, stepping out into the sunlight. The light didn't seem to touch him. Shadows clung to his skin. He wants to rule the world. I just want to clean it. By raising an army of the dead, Hermione pointed to the horizon, where the skeletal sentries stood watch. Harry, that's necromancy. It's evil. It's a tool, Harry said. Magic has no morality, only intent. We can help you, Ron pleaded. We can fix this. Come back to the burrow. Mum's worried sick. We can find a way to get those things out of your head. Harry looked at them. He felt a pang of memory, laughter in the common room, butterbeer at the Three Broomsticks, the feeling of belonging. But it felt like watching a movie of someone else's life. The Triad Bloodlines, Morgana, Peverell, Thessaly, they were jealous gods. They didn't like competition. The Harry Potter you knew died in that bank, Harry said softly. He died when he realized that love doesn't stop killing curses. Power does. That's not true, Hermione yelled, tears streaming down her face. Harry, please. Harry raised his hand. A wall of translucent obsidian erupted from the ground between them, 20 feet high, separating him from his friends. Harry, Ron pounded on the wall. Open this. Don't do this. Dante. Harry spoke to the air. Activate the displacement wards. Send them back to England. You sure, boss? Dante's voice crackled over an earpiece. They seem nice. Send them, Harry commanded. Before I change my mind and let the Peverell line eat them. The sand around Ron and Hermione began to swirl. A vortex of displacement magic opened up. Harry, Hermione screamed one last time. He's leading you into a trap. Albania is a slaughterhouse. I know, Harry whispered as the vortex swallowed them. That's why I'm going. The desert was silent again. Harry leaned his forehead against the cool black stone of the wall. For a second, he looked just like a tired 17-year-old boy. Then the moment passed. He pushed off the wall, his face hardening into a mask of war. Jinx, Harry said into the comms. Prep the shadow jump. We're going to Albania. The fortress of Vlor sat on a jagged peak in the Serranian mountains, overlooking the Adriatic Sea. It was a nightmare of Gothic architecture. A sprawling complex of black stone spires and fortified walls. Storm clouds swirled perpetually around its highest tower, flashing with red lightning. Voldemort hadn't just fortified it. He had turned it into a focal point for dark magic. The air for miles around tasted of copper and ash. Harry, Dante, and a select squad of 50 skeletal elites, the Bone Guard, materialized on a ridge overlooking the fortress. Cozy, Dante muttered, looking through a pair of omnioculars. I count 400 heat signatures. And that's just the living ones. The dead ones are cold. The cup is in the central spire, Harry said. I can feel it. It's calling to the greedy part of my soul. And the Noondu? Dante asked. Jinx said there's a Noondu. It's patrolling the courtyard, Harry pointed. Down below, a massive shape was prowling the stone perimeter. It looked like a leopard the size of a garbage truck. Its breath was a toxic yellow fog that withered the moss on the stones as it passed. A Nundu, the most dangerous beast in the world. It took 100 wizards to subdue one. Plan A, Dante asked. Sneak in. Plan B, Harry said, drawing the bone wand. We knock. Harry raised the wand to the sky. He didn't cast a spell. He pulled on the Morgana line, the chaotic, elemental fury. Storm. The clouds above the fortress churned. They turned from gray to a violent, bruising purple. Thunder cracked, shaking the mountain. Fire, Harry whispered. A bolt of purple lightning, thick as a redwood tree, hammered down from the heavens. It struck the main gate of the fortress. The explosion was deafening. The massive iron gates didn't just blow open, they vaporized. Stone shattered. The shockwave threw the vampire guards on the walls into the abyss. Go, Harry commanded. The bone guard surged forward. They didn't run. They flowed, a tide of white bone and rusted armor, moving with unnatural speed. They clashed with the inferi pouring out of the breach. It was a battle of the dead versus the dead. Harry and Dante jumped from the ridge. Harry used the wind to cushion their fall, landing in the chaos of the courtyard. Kill everything that isn't bone. Harry roared. Dante unleashed his submachine guns. The enchanted bullets, carved with runes of exorcism, tore through the vampires, turning them to dust. But then, the Nundu roared. It was a sound that stopped the heart. The massive beast leapt from the shadows, its toxic breath rolling toward them like a chemical weapon. Masks, Dante yelled, slapping a rebreather over his face. Harry didn't need a mask. He simply stopped breathing. The Peverell blood didn't require oxygen when it was in combat mode. The Nundu landed in front of Harry, snarling, its eyes burning with hunger. It swiped a paw the size of a table. Harry didn't dodge. He caught the paw. He grunted as his knees buckled under the literal tons of force, but he held it. He looked up into the beast's eyes. Bad kitty, Harry snarled. He channeled the Thessalian blood. Blood mastery. Beast dominion. Submit. He pushed his will into the Nundu's mind. It was a chaotic mess of hunger and rage. Harry smashed through it. He didn't ask for obedience, he took it. He flooded the beast's veins with his own magic, overpowering its nervous system. The Nundu whined. The yellow fog in its breath dissipated. It slumped down, looking confused. Guard me, Harry commanded. The Nundu roared again, but this time, it turned outward, toward the Death Eaters rushing the courtyard. It pounced, tearing through. Voldemort's elite like they were made of wet tissue paper. Show off, Dante yelled over the gunfire. Get to the spire, Harry shouted. All clear the path. They fought their way through the inner keep. It was a slaughter. Harry was a whirlwind. He didn't use stunning spells. He used gravity. He used entropy. He turned the stone floor into quicksand. He turned the air into glass shards. A group of Death Eaters, led by Antonin Dolohov, blocked the hallway to the spire. Potter, Dolohov screamed, raising his wand. The Dark Lord will. Harry flicked his wrist. Dolohov's voice vanished. Then his bones vanished. The Death Eater collapsed into a jelly-like heap of flesh. The others turned to run, but the bone guard cut them down. Harry kicked open the doors to the inner sanctum. It was a circular room, lit by torches burning with green fire. In the center, floating above a pool of dark liquid, was the cup. Hufflepuff's cup. Gold, shining, innocent. But standing between Harry and the cup wasn't Voldemort. It was a woman. She was tall, draped in robes that seemed to be made of flayed skin. Her face was covered by a mask of polished obsidian. The Guardian, Harry whispered. Jinx said there was a summoner. The woman raised her hands. The pool of dark liquid bubbled. You are late, Scion, she spoke. Her voice sounded like two stones grinding together. The master is not here. But he left a gift. The liquid in the pool exploded upward. It formed a shape, a massive, towering demon made of shadow and tar. It had no eyes, only a mouth filled with rows of needle teeth. A void stalker, Dante swore. That's a level 10 threat. That's a nuke the city threat. The demon lashed out. A tentacle of shadow smashed into Harry, throwing him across the room. He hit the stone wall hard enough to crack it. Harry slid to the floor, coughing. He tasted copper. Strong, the Morgana voice laughed in his head. Worthy. Harry stood up. He wiped the blood from his lip. Dante, Harry said, shoot the woman. I'll handle the calamari. On it, Dante said, taking aim. Harry sprinted at the demon. The creature roared and brought down a fist of solid darkness. Harry slid under it, his bone wand slashing upward. Sectum Sempra Maxima. A wave of invisible blades cut into the shadow flesh. The demon howled, but the wounds closed instantly. It heals, Dante yelled, firing at the summoner. She had erected a shield of blood that was deflecting his bullets. It's not alive, Harry realized. It's a construct. It's anchored to the cup. Harry dodged another strike. He needed to get to the cup. But the demon was blocking it. He needed more power. He needed to stop holding back. Harry closed his eyes for a split second. He reached deep into the triad. He found the place where the three lines met, the singularity. Avatar state, Harry whispered. He opened his eyes. They were blinding white. He levitated off the ground. The air around him began to warp. The stone floor cracked and floated upward. Begone. Harry thrust his hands forward. A beam of pure, tricolored energy, violet, black, red, erupted from his chest. It hit the demon. The creature didn't just get pushed back. It was erased. The beam disintegrated the shadow, burned through the tar, and slammed into the summoner behind it. She didn't even have time to scream. She and her shield were vaporized. The beam hit the cup. The gold turned white hot. The soul fragment inside shrieked, a high, lonely sound. The cup melted. It turned into a puddle of gold slag. The demon vanished instantly, its anchor gone. Harry dropped to the floor, the light fading from his eyes. He fell to his knees, gasping. That had been too much. He felt like he had just sprinted a marathon while holding his breath. Harry. Dante ran over, checking him. You alive? 3, Harry wheezed. 3 down. Yeah, and you almost brought the mountain down with it, Dante said, helping him up. We gotta go. The structural integrity of this place is questionable. As if to prove his point, the ceiling began to crumble. Shadow walk, Harry grunted. Can you do it? Dante asked worriedly. You look drained. I have too, Harry said. He grabbed Dante's arm. He summoned the bone guard, those that remained. He focused on the boneyard. On home, they vanished into the shadows just as the spire of Vlor collapsed into a pile of rubble. Thousands of miles away, in the deepest chamber of the Ministry of Magic in London, Lord Voldemort screamed. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. He stood in the atrium, surrounded by his followers. The fountain of magical brethren had been destroyed, replaced by a statue of himself. He clutched his chest. He felt it. The cup was gone. The diadem was gone. The ring. The diary. The locket. Only one remained. Nagini. The great snake was coiled around his shoulders, hissing in agitation. Voldemort looked at his Death Eaters. Lucius Malfoy was cowering. Bellatrix was dead, crushed in Gringotts. Dolohov was dead. He is coming, Voldemort whispered. The boy. The thief. My lord. Yaxley stepped forward, trembling. What do we do? He destroyed the fortress in Albania in minutes. His power, it is unnatural. Voldemort straightened up. His red eyes burned with a cold, desperate light. He uses the old blood, Voldemort hissed. He thinks he is the master of magic. But he is a child playing with fire. Voldemort walked to the center of the atrium. If he wants a war, Voldemort said, I will give him the apocalypse. He turned to Yaxley. Open the Department of Mysteries, Voldemort commanded. Yaxley paled. My lord, the unspeakables, the vaults, they are forbidden. Even to us. Open them, Voldemort roared. Release the subjects. Break the time turners. Shatter the prophecy orbs. I want every cursed artifact, every bound horror, every experiment unleashed. He stroked Nagini's head. He hunts my soul, Voldemort whispered to the snake. So I will burn the world he tries to save. We go to Hogwarts. We make our stand where it began. And the boy? Lucius asked weakly. Voldemort smiled. It was the smile of a man who has nothing left to lose. The boy is coming to me. And when he arrives, he will find nothing but ash. Back in the boneyard, Harry lay on a cot in the infirmary wing of the sanctuary. Jinx was applying a salve to the burns on his chest, residue from the energy beam. You're lucky you didn't melt your own heart, Jinx scolded. That was raw magic, Harry. Unfiltered. It worked, Harry rasped. Dante walked in, holding a bottle of whiskey. To the victors, he said, pouring 3 glasses. He knows, Harry said, ignoring the drink. Voldemort. He knows it's the end game. So what's the move? Dante asked. We hit him in London. No, Harry said, sitting up. He won't stay in London. It's too open. He'll go to the only place that can withstand a siege. The only place with wards strong enough to hold back an army. Hogwarts, Jinx whispered. Harry nodded. He's going to hold the school hostage. He's going to force me to destroy my home to get to him. Harry stood up. The pain was receding, replaced by the cold determination of the Peverell line. Send a message, Harry said. To who? To everyone, Harry said. To the Order, to the Ministry, to the Goblins, to the Centaurs. Harry walked to the window, looking out at his skeletal army. Tell them the Master of the Triad is marching on Hogwarts, Harry said. Tell them to pick a side. And if they pick the wrong one? Dante asked. Harry turned back, his tricolored eyes glowing in the dim light. Then God help them. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. The sky over Scotland wasn't just dark, it was diseased. It was a bruised, sickly purple, roiling with clouds that looked less like water vapor and more like clotting blood. The air pressure was low enough to make ears pop and teeth ache. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, once the crown jewel of the magical world, looked like a tombstone jutting out of a mass grave. Voldemort hadn't just fortified the castle, he had desecrated it. The Department of Mysteries had been emptied. The horrors that the unspeakables kept locked away in the dark bowels of London were now patrolling the battlements. Time sandstorms swirled around the astronomy tower, aging the stone to dust in seconds before reversing the flow. Brains with tentacles, the Thought Eaters, floated in the courtyards, psychically screaming at anyone who got too close. And guarding the bridge, the veil, not the archway, but the essence of the veil, torn from its anchor and stretched like a shimmering curtain of death across the chasm. Inside the Great Hall, the remnants of the Resistance were huddled. The Order of the Phoenix, the DA, the teachers, they looked like ghosts. They were tired, bleeding, and running on fumes. He's playing with us, Ron Weasley whispered, gripping his wand so hard his knuckles were white. He was staring out a shattered window at the Nightmare Army gathering on the lawn. Why doesn't he just attack? Because he's waiting for the main event, Hermione said, her voice hollow. She was bandaging a nasty hex burn on Neville's arm. Voldemort doesn't want the castle. He wants Harry. Harry isn't coming, Ginny said, her voice trembling but defiant. He sent us away. He doesn't care anymore. He cares, a deep voice rumbled from the shadows. Kingsley Shacklebolt stepped forward, looking out at the horizon. He just cares in a way that terrifies us. Quote. Suddenly, the ground shook. Not a tremor, a quake. The Black Lake exploded. A massive column of water shot into the sky, freezing instantly into a jagged spire of ice. The clouds above began to swirl, forming a vortex directly over the Forbidden Forest. Lightning struck the ground, not one bolt, but hundreds. They hammered the earth in a rhythmic, deafening drumbeat. Boom, boom, boom. Out of the smoke walked a figure. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like the end of the world. Harry Potter walked alone. He was stripped to the waist, his torso a map of glowing runic scars. The ring of chaos burned on his finger. The bone wand was in his hand. His eyes were tricolored suns, green, purple, black. Behind him, emerging from the shadows of the trees, came the Legion. Thousands of skeletons, but not just human. Bear skeletons, wolf skeletons, the massive, reanimated remains of giants. And flanking him were the Bone Guard, moving with military precision. Their eye sockets burning with cold blue fire. Dante and Jinx flanked him, armed to the teeth with enchanted heavy weaponry. Showtime, Dante muttered, racking the slide of a magically modified AA-12 shotgun. Harry stopped at the edge of the bridge. He looked at the veil blocking his path. He looked at the castle. He raised his wand. Tom. Harry's voice didn't shout, it rolled over the valley like thunder. School's in session. From the highest tower, a figure blacker than the night flew down. Voldemort hovered over the courtyard, surrounded by his elite Death Eaters. And the twisting horrors of the mysteries. You dare, Voldemort screamed, his voice amplified by rage. You come to my kingdom. Your kingdom is a graveyard, Harry replied. I'm just the caretaker. Harry didn't cast a spell to break the veil. He walked into it. The Order watched in horror. The veil meant instant death. Instant erasure. Harry stepped into the shimmering curtain. The Peverell bloodline flared. The veil whispered to him. It recognized him. He wasn't a victim, he was a VIP. The curtain didn't kill him. It parted. It draped around his shoulders like a cloak of liquid smoke. Harry stepped out the other side, wearing the veil. Impossible, Lucius Malfoy gasped from the battlements. Kill him, Voldemort shrieked. Kill him. The war began. It wasn't a battle, it was a meat grinder. Voldemort unleashed the Department of Mysteries. The floating brains descended, their tentacles lashing out to strangle thoughts. The time sand whipped into a frenzy. Harry countered with the boneyard. Charge, Harry whispered. The skeletal legion surged forward. They didn't feel pain. They didn't have minds to strangle. The brains latched onto skulls and found nothing but death magic. The skeletons tore the brains apart with bony fingers. Dante and Jinx opened fire. The enchanted shotgun shells, packed with salt and cold iron, shredded the Death Eaters on the lower walls. Harry walked through the chaos, untouched. A Death Eater tried to hit him with a blasting curse. Harry didn't even look. A spike of obsidian erupted from the ground and impaled the attacker. He reached the courtyard. The Noondu, the one Harry had dominated in Albania, leapt over the wall, landing with a ground-shaking thud. It roared, its toxic breath melting the stone soldiers Voldemort had animated. Potter, Bellatrix Lestrange, or what was left of her, animated by dark magic and sheer spite, lunged at him. She looked like a broken doll, her neck twisted at an odd angle. Harry looked at her. He felt pity. Rest, Harry said. He touched her forehead. The Peverell magic severed the dark strings holding her corpse together. She collapsed, finally dead. Then, the ground beneath Harry erupted. A massive hand, made of stone and fire, grabbed him. A golem. Voldemort had transmuted the very foundation of the castle into a monster. Harry was squeezed. He felt his ribs creak. Burn, the Morgana blood hissed. Harry exploded. A supernova of purple fire blasted the golem apart. Stone shrapnel flew everywhere, taking out a dozen Death Eaters. Harry hovered in the air, wreathed in flame. He locked eyes with Voldemort. "Come down here, Tom," Harry roared. "Stop hiding behind your toys." Voldemort descended. He didn't look human anymore. He had merged with the dark artifacts. His skin was shifting like oil. Snakes emerged from his back. "I am the heir of Slytherin," Voldemort hissed. "I am the master of magic." "You're a landlord with bad tenants," Harry quipped. They clashed. It was blinding. Spells that had no names. Beams of energy that cracked the sky. Harry threw lightning. Voldemort threw darkness. Harry turned the rain into acid. Voldemort turned the air into vacuum. The castle shook. The astronomy tower collapsed, sliding into the lake. Inside the Great Hall, the Order was fighting off the remaining Death Eaters. But they stopped to watch the duel in the courtyard. It was like watching gods fight. "He's winning," Ron whispered. "Harry is winning." "He's not winning," Hermione said, tears streaming down her face. "He's ending it." Voldemort was backing up. He was powerful, yes. But he was fighting 3 ancient bloodlines housed in a body that had been hardened by ritual death. Harry was faster, stronger, more brutal. Harry caught a killing curse with his bare hand. He crushed the green light in his palm, turning it into smoke. "That trick is getting old," Harry snarled. He closed the distance. He punched Voldemort in the chest. The impact sounded like a cannon shot. Voldemort flew back, crashing into the fountain. Harry landed over him. He raised the bone wand. "Where is she?" Harry demanded. "Where is the snake?" Voldemort laughed. He spat black blood. "She is everywhere, Potter. She is the castle." Harry froze. He looked at the walls. The stones were moving. Scales. The entire castle, the wards. Voldemort had fused Nagini's essence with the architecture of Hogwarts. To kill the snake, Harry would have to destroy the school. "You see," Voldemort wheezed, "you cannot win. You must burn your home to save it." Harry looked at the Great Hall. At his friends. If he destroyed the castle, they would die. "Checkmate," Voldemort whispered. Harry looked down at the fallen Dark Lord. He looked at the tricolored fire in his own hands. "You forgot one thing, Tom," Harry said softly. "And what is that?" "I'm not a wizard anymore," Harry said. "I'm a necromancer. I don't destroy homes. I haunt them." Har. Y slammed his hand onto the cobblestones. Peverell. He didn't attack the physical castle. He attacked the soul of the castle. He reached into the stone, past the wards, past the mortar. He found the soul, the piece of Voldemort inside Nagini, stretched thin over the entire structure. It was a surgical strike on a metaphysical level. "Get out," Harry pulled. The castle screamed. Every brick, every window, every gargoyle shrieked. Black smoke began to bleed from the walls. It pooled in the courtyard, screaming, twisting, trying to hold on. Voldemort screamed with it. He was linked to the snake. He felt every inch of the extraction. "No, stop. You are tearing me apart." "That's the plan," Harry gritted out, sweat pouring down his face. His nose started to bleed. The strain was immense. The smoke coalesced. It formed a massive, spectral snake in the air above them. "Nagini! Dante!" Harry yelled. Now, Dante was waiting on the roof of the Transfiguration Tower. He was holding a weapon that Jinx had spent a week building. A railgun, magically accelerated. loaded with a single slug made of goblin silver and basilisk venom. Smile, you ugly worm, Dante whispered. He pulled the trigger. The boom shattered windows for miles. The slug hit the spectral snake. It didn't just pierce it, it obliterated it. The venom infected the spirit. The silver anchored it. Nagini exploded. A shockwave of green light washed over the castle. Voldemort collapsed. The link was severed. The final horcrux was gone. He was mortal. Harry stood up. He was swaying. His magic was nearly tapped out. The triad was quiet, exhausted. Voldemort looked up. He looked small, withered. The monster was gone, leaving only a frightened, mutilated man. I am immortal, Voldemort whispered, trying to crawl away. I have contingency plans. Harry walked over to him. He didn't raise his wand. He didn't raise his fist. He knelt down. Tom, Harry said gently. Look at me. Voldemort looked into the tricolored eyes. You were afraid of death, Harry said. You ran from it for 70 years. You murdered. You tortured. You broke your soul into confetti just to avoid the end. Harry reached out and placed a hand on Voldemort's chest, right over his heart. Let me show you, Harry whispered. It's not so bad. It's just quiet. Voldemort's eyes widened. No, please. Harry let the Peverell magic flow one last time. Not as a weapon, as a guide. He stopped Voldemort's heart. It wasn't violent. It was a cessation, a period at the end of a long, run-on sentence. Tom Riddle slumped back against the fountain. His eyes stared up at the diseased sky, which was finally, slowly, beginning to clear. He was dead. Just a body. Just meat. Harry stayed kneeling for a long time. The silence returned to Hogwarts. The battle noise faded. The skeletons stopped moving and crumbled into dust, their purpose fulfilled. Dante and Jinx walked into the courtyard. They looked battered, covered in grime and blood, but alive. Dante looked at the body. He nudged it with his boot. He's gone, Dante asked. He's gone, Harry said. Harry stood up. He felt light. The heavy, thrumming pressure of the prophecy was gone. The doors to the Great Hall opened. The survivors poured out. Ron, Hermione, Ginny, McGonagall, Slughorn. They stopped at the edge of the courtyard. They looked at the ruins. They looked at the dead Dark Lord. And they looked at Harry. Harry turned to face them. He saw the relief in their eyes. But he also saw the fear. He saw the way they flinched when he moved. He saw the way McGonagall gripped her wand a little tighter. He realized then that the war was over, but he had lost. He couldn't go back to the common room. He couldn't play Quidditch. He couldn't have Sunday roast at the Burrow. He was a necromancer, a warlock, a killer of kings. Harry, Hermione took a step forward. Harry, it's over. You can come home. Harry smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. This isn't my home anymore, Hermione, Harry said. I burned that bridge when I walked through the veil. He looked at Dante. Is the transport ready? Shadow jump is prepped, Dante said. Jinx has the coordinates locked. The sanctuary is waiting. Harry, wait, Ron yelled. Where are you going? Harry looked at his best friends one last time. He memorized their faces. He wanted to hug them. He wanted to cry, but the triad demanded strength. The world is big, Harry said. And it's dirty. Someone has to clean it. He raised the bone wand. Don't look for me, Harry said. I'll be there when you need me. But until then, let me be a myth. The shadows swirled around him. The darkness rose up, swallowing Harry, Dante, and Jinx. Goodbye, Harry whispered. And then, they were gone. The sun broke through the clouds. A single ray of golden light hit the face of the dead Dark Lord. The wizarding world was saved. But somewhere, out in the dark, the master of the triad was watching. And he was just getting started. End of chapter 5.